2050 competition for the open category. And my name's Terrence Galvin, and I'm one of the professional advisors to the competition, along with Blaine Nichols. We want to welcome everyone for this evening's event, 8 presenters, 8 teams. And we want to start by welcoming everybody who's going to be speaking. We want to welcome our moderator, who's the Chancellor of Laurentian University and a very well-known journalist and TV host named Steve Paikin. And we want to welcome our jury facilitator. So the jury facilitator has been Tone Dreesen, who's had lots of experience doing juries and competitions with the Ontario Association of Architects. He's also a partner in Dreesen Cardinal Architects. We want to welcome our community stakeholders. So tonight we have Wendy Watson, Dennis Castellan, and Katie McCartney, and then the team finalists, the 8 teams you've been posted on the website and meeting each other tonight for the first time. So the Sudbury 2050 competition was launched at the MacEwan School of Architecture back in February 27th to be exact, in 2020. We had more than 500 registered people at the beginning from 28 countries, so it took off with a kind of global map. And then with the submissions at the end, it closed on August 28th, 2020, with over 100 global team submissions. And when we did that, it was in part because the 100 teams, with the complexity of the project, especially in the open category, I feel that we ended up with still a great global map of teams that you're going to see tonight. And then we ended up having a short list with the jury. After the 100 team submissions had been looked at with all the 6 criteria in the brief, we ended up with 13 finalists. So 5 presented last night in the open category, and in the student category, and the 8 in the open category are tonight. The next thing was we had comprised the jury, and the jury is architects, academics, designers, students, politicians, and community representatives that have come together. Before that, though, I would like to say this evening we'd like to acknowledge the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850. We also recognize that Laurentian University is located on the traditional lands of the Atikamekw and Anishinaabeg, and furthermore, that the city of Greater Sudbury includes the traditional lands of the Wahnapitae First Nation, Miigwech. So the jury, I'm just going to go to one slide for the jury. Before I introduce people, I would show you their photographs as well and screen share. Most of you are familiar with the website. So the jury is 15 people, comprised, as I say, from different walks, including the Mayor of Greater Sudbury and 2 councillors, as well as a series of, just looking for the tab. The tab is the easiest. Here we go. To give you a visual for tonight and last night as well. So as we went through the jury, searching, Blaine and myself, professional advisors from the beginning. Then Tone Dreesen, as I mentioned, will be with us tonight. And then Shannon Bassett teaches at the MacEwan School of Architecture. And Mayor Brian Bigger. Tonight they're in a city council meeting, so the mayor can't be there, but he'll be watching the taped version of this immediately afterwards. So Mayor Brian Bigger is the mayor of the city of Greater Sudbury. Dr. David Fortan is the director of the MacEwan School of Architecture. Victor Kolinchuk is an architect with Architecture 49 and resides in Winnipeg and has worked extensively in the north. Bruce Mao was in last night's panel. He's the founder of Bruce Mao Studio and the co-founder of Massive Change Network in Chicago. Jeff McCausland was also in last night's panel. He's a counselor with the city of Greater Sudbury, and a musician as well. Tonight then, Cheryl McEwen, she is the founder of Make My Day Foods Inc. and a member of the MacEwan International Advisory Board, among many other philanthropies. Deb McIntosh is a city councillor and has done lots of work in Sudbury with groups including Rainbow Roots and the regreening and bike paths and so on. Marianne McKenna was there last night on the panel. She's a partner at KPMB Architects in Toronto and a member of the Order of Canada and a member of the MacEwan International Advisory Board. Jason McLennan, who's with us tonight from Bainbridge Island out in Washington State, is the CEO of McLennan Design, the chairman of the International Living Future Institute, and the author of the Living Building Challenge, among other things. The Living Building Challenge had a huge influence with regenerative thinking in many of the architecture schools across North America and the globe. Tristan O'Gorman is a graduate student at the MacEwan School of Architecture and has been on the jury. And Lisa Rochon, you met last night. She's the author. She's an author. She's the director of City Lab in Toronto. She's the former critic of the Globe and Mail and a senior fellow at the University of Toronto Global Cities Institute, a member of our board and last night's moderator. Dee Dee Taylor-Eustace was also on the panel last evening, and she is an OEA member, founder of Taylor Hanna Architect out of Toronto. Ted Wilson is another professor of architecture and hugely involved in our courses on sustainability from the beginning of the school. And Brittany Otley-Perrott is a graduate student in the master's program at the MacEwan School of Architecture. So that's our jury of 15. So the idea for tonight is that we have a combined group of panelists. Some of them are the original jury from the groups, and then there's another group that are community stakeholders that Steve Paikin will get to in a moment. So with that, I'd like to introduce Steve Paikin. As I say, it's a pleasure to welcome him tonight and thank him for doing this, to be moderator. He's the Chancellor of Laurentian University since 2013. He was born in Hamilton, Ontario, and Steve lives in Toronto. Steve is the host of TVO's flagship current affairs program, The Agenda with Steve Paikin. That's the gold standard now for in-depth analysis and thoughtful debate in Canadian media. Those of you that follow Steve and The Agenda know the success that the show has received. Early in his career, Steve worked at CBC News as an anchor and correspondent, a reporter for the Hamilton Spectator and CHFI Radio, as well as radio and television stations in Boston. For more than 35 years, Steve has built a sterling reputation as an eminently fair journalist who has moderated federal and Ontario election debates. He has authored 7 books, including Bill Davis, Nation Builder, and Not So Bland After All. That's one title from 2016. And he's produced several feature-length documentaries as well. In October of 2013, Steve became an educational ambassador and was appointed Art Chancellor at Laurentian University in Sudbury. Steve is also a distinguished visiting professor at Ryerson University in Toronto. He holds honorary doctorates from Laurentian University, Victoria University at the University of Toronto, also called Victoria College, McMaster University in Hamilton, and York University. In addition, Steve holds honorary diplomas from Humber, Centennial, and Mohawk colleges. In December of 2013, Steve was made an Officer of the Order of Canada for his contributions as a journalist who engages, informs, and educates viewers on a broad range of public policy issues. He was also invested into the Order of Ontario in 2014. Tonight, he's our Sudbury 2050 moderator for the open category. We're delighted to welcome Steve Paikin. Over to you, Steve.
Terrence, thank you very much for that really, really long keynote introduction. Oh my goodness, great. If I knew you were going to talk that long, I'd have interrupted a half an hour ago. But anyway, I really am delighted to be with everybody tonight. This is going to be a very exciting evening. I noticed last night, Lisa Rochon started the evening with, I guess, some opening comments about views that she had on the competition. And I'm going to dispense with all of that tonight, mostly because I don't know anything about this subject. And I'm really here to learn tonight. I can't wait to dive into these proposals and learn a great deal. Lisa, of course, is a pro and would have had relevant things to contribute, but I don't. So let's dispense with my opening comments and let's get right to it. We have 8 presenters tonight as opposed to 5. So that's another reason to get right to it. We should thank the sponsors before we go any further. The Greater Sudbury Chamber of Commerce, Studio 123, the Northern Ontario Society of Architects, and of course, Rob and Cheryl MacEwan and the MacEwan School of Architecture. Rob and Cheryl are in on the call tonight, and I can't think of 2 people who have done more to champion this school and to make it a reality. Their name it's appropriately on this school because they have done so much good for Laurentian and for this school. And kudos to you too, and we're so delighted that you're with us tonight. The panelists you've heard, Shannon Bassett, Jason McLennan, Cheryl MacEwan, David Fortin, and we have community stakeholders as well. So let's welcome them. Dennis Castellan is an architect and with the Northern Ontario Association of Architects. Katie McCartney is the president of Frosker, Environmental Stewardship Sector. Wendy Watson, Director of Communications for Greater Sudbury Utilities. Now tonight is not only going to be fun, but it's going to be also very richly rewarding for someone. In the open category, 8 finalists presenting tonight. There's $50,000 at the end of the night. And the student category, the 5 finalists from last night, there's $10,000 for the winner of that. And beyond that, there's also the People's Choice Award, which we're encouraging everybody to vote on. They can go to the website and vote on that later. And there's $3,000 eligible for that. So there's a lot of dough at stake tonight as well. Sudbury2050.ca. That's the website. Sudbury2050, the numbers, .ca. If you go to the website before midnight tonight, you can vote. And as Lisa said last night, I'm sure the tallying of the votes will take, maybe 3 weeks less time than the American election. That was a good line, Lisa, so I stole it tonight. Only one of the 13 finalists, meaning both the student and the open category, will be awarded the People's Choice Award. Again, Sudbury2050.ca. Vote by midnight tonight. Our format's pretty simple. Each team's going to have 10 minutes to present. We're really going to be sticklers about sticking to the 10 minutes. There will then be 8 to 10 minutes of commentary and feedback from our invited jury and community guests. And for the public, we would encourage you, and I'll say these numbers to make sure you get them. Note the team number of each presentation so that when you go to Sudbury2050.ca, you can look for that team number and vote for whichever team you want to have a shot at the People's Choice Award. And yeah, let's say one more thing here. Of course, we all wish we were doing this together. We all wish we were in one location and able to shake hands and really get to talk to each other. We are, I guess, grateful that we can at least virtually connect this way during the pandemic. But we all know from our experience with these technologies and with bandwidth that they can be moody, to say the least. So we may, during the course of this evening, have some screen freezes, or we may have some other technical issues that we're going to have to deal with. We're just going to urge everybody to hang in there, roll with the punches as best we can. And, before you know it, we'll be done. All right, then. Let us now screen share and start our 10-minute presentations. The first team up tonight is Team 0322. Team 0322. Their title is SEV, S-E accent grave V-E. It means sap in French. They are from Canada. We have Corinna St. Pierre, Julie Parenteau, Émilie Labrousse, Pierre-Yves Deal. Team 0322, it's over to you.
And Steve, just as they're about to begin, I do want to say to the public, who's the audience, to use the Q&A. Please write in the bottom box on the far right Q&A, and Chris Bazou is with us, and he'll be monitoring the questions, and we'll try to insert them, Steve, at appropriate moments or at the end. So please use that.
Hello, everyone. We are Collectif Escargot from Montreal. We are delighted to be with you today. We would first like to thank the McEwen School of Architecture and the City of Sudbury for this inspiring competition and this great opportunity. We had a lot of fun developing our project, and we are pleased to have the chance to share it with you this evening. We are also eager to discover in more detail the other finalist proposal. We will make quick introductions.
I'm Karina, landscape architect. And I'm Emily, landscape architect too.
C'est Pierre-Yves, I'm a designer.
And I'm Julie, also a designer. We will start by presenting our video, which gives a good summary of the project, and then we will go over each point in detail.
Sudbury, c'est la beauté du Nord, des paysages plus grands que nature, la forêt boréale. Une vie culturelle riche, ancrée, ayant de longues racines. Le patrimoine, la culture, la biodiversité, tout est là. Le centre-ville est enclavé par les voies de circulation et le réseau ferroviaire. Il y a un manque de connexion. Et si on révélait les cours d'eau? Et si on verdissait pour régénérer? Et si nous unissions la biodiversité, le territoire et la communauté ensemble? Révéler, régénérer, unir. Ces 3 gestes vont permettre au centre-ville de se développer sainement comme un écosystème unique. La rivière refait surface. Le verdissement massif est poursuivi et bonifié. Le tissu urbain est ressoudé. On crée un cœur piéton. on développe des places publiques à échelle humaine où se côtoient nature, culture et patrimoine dans une trame urbaine connectée et vivante, testée et construite en collectivité. Les rues sont repensées pour donner la place aux piétons, à la mobilité active et à des espaces publics attractifs. Les ruelles deviennent des expériences piétonnes, des espaces identitaires et enveloppants. Elles unissent un réseau de circulation fluide, confortable et sécuritaire. Régénérer passe par la participation citoyenne. On obtient des espaces en évolution, en concertation. La communauté prend part aux transformations. Consulter, tester, construire. Des nouveaux milieux de vie sont créés par une architecture repensée pour son efficacité énergétique et son apport à l'agriculture urbaine. Et si c'était le printemps? Un printemps nourricier qui unit la communauté, qui régénère les paysages, qui révèle une nordicité chaleureuse, comme la sève qui circule librement.
So as we have just seen, our project is about renewal and it's called SEV, which means sap. The flowing sap is associated with the idea of spring. We like the idea of spring for its symbolism, the life that unfolds, the energy that circulates, nature that is reborn. We found that there was an interesting and rich contrast between the idea of spring, but in a context of nordicity. We were inspired by the image of the sap flowing to work on the connections. Sap is something that nourishes a living organism. Our project seeks to create connection to invigorate and nourish the heart of Sudbury. We want to feed biodiversity by bringing nature and green spaces and also nurture history and cultural life by highlighting existing heritage. We can also think of nourishing in the literal sense through infrastructure that support local and organic food, and above all, nurture a feeling of belonging within the community by developing the city through the citizen voices. In our analysis of the existing, what we see is that the city center is cut off from the periphery and the industrial footprint divides the territory. We propose to reconnect it by bringing in streams and area vegetation to create new network and connect downtown to greater Sudbury. The circulation routes have been redesigned for the comfort of pedestrian and active mobility. The trace of the industrial past that remains visible in the landscape serves as a canvas for new public spaces on a human scale where nature, culture, and heritage come together. We have developed along three main lines: reveal, unite, and regenerate. In these three actions, it is these three actions that will allow the city center to develop healthily, as a unique ecosystem. So the first one is reveal. To reveal is to highlight existing beauty. We want to reveal the nature resource, the natural resources, and the built heritage. Biodiversity and culture are revealed by creating collective spaces that are part of a vision of sustainable development for a higher quality of life. As we saw on the map, there is a river running under the city center. We propose to bring it to the surface. It becomes recreational for citizens and brings biodiversity. In this rendered fall image, one can imagine the atmosphere and the possibilities that this stream and this urban borealis forest could offer to the people. In this diagram, we can see more clearly where the river passes. In addition to natural beauties like the rivers, we also reveal the built heritage. Industrial architecture is preserved and transformed. Here, for example, we imagine that the old arena has become an exhibition center. A portion of the frame and the structure of the building has been preserved. It is a way to reveal culture and heritage, preserve and enhance the history of the city. The same goes for the trace of the railway industry, which has enormous potential to invest and reveal. On the map, we can see a proposed development where the former industrial sector becomes a cultural hub. The old railway line is a boardwalk that runs alongside filter marshes and joins Lake Ramsey. Unite. As for uniting, we are talking about uniting citizens to their city through new traffic networks. We are developing a vibrant city center on a human scale. Commercial and residential streets are being redesigned to make room for pedestrians, active mobility, and attractive public spaces. We are setting up shared street configuration. The large boulevards are crossed by lineal parks. They accommodate a variety of uses. The network of existing alley is improved. They are transformed to become a pedestrian exploration zone. They are enlightened, invested with culture, art, and vegetation. They are places to discover. Finally, the living environment and collective area are part of a vision for sustainable development for a superior quality of life. We use ecological material. We design inclusive places with a concern for biophilia. We design home differently, developing intergenerational, inclusive, and unifying spaces. We make room for urban agriculture through green roofs, four-season greenhouses, collective garden design in homes. And the new construction complies to the requirement of the Living Building Challenge. Regenerate. If the three gestures of revealing, unite, and regenerate are all important, regenerate is the keystone. Regeneration involves citizen consultation. This process helps develop an inclusive city for all the communities that make up the Sudbury community. Everyone takes part in the transformation in a participatory vision. The city is being built among us, and us that includes citizens, elected officials, planners, and designers for a comfortable and creative and vibrant city. Transitional arrangements are being piloted, which allow for gradual development to arrive, permanent arrangement which reflects the needs and will of the population. Urban planning with broad guidelines for heritage enhancement, creativity, and ecological sustainability is being developed in the community and by the community. It's Sudbury Spring, a northern spring, where a winter city grows. This is the return of the river, which reappears to welcome skaters and pedalboards. An outburst of blue stream and green spaces across the city to create a Nordic lawn. Landscape, heritage, and community are united through new consulted living spaces. Circulation from a new connected and lively urban fabric, developed and built in community. It's spring, the sap circulates freely.
C'est ça, équipe?
Voilà.
Parfait. Merci beaucoup pour votre présentation très impressive. C'est équipe Sève. Merci, Karina, Julie, Émilie, et Pierre-Yves. All right, I guess I will use my moderator's prerogative here just to sort of arbitrarily pick one of our guests to start the conversation. So Jason McLennan, why don't you pick up the torch and we'll go from there.
Happy to do it. I just turned my camera on. Can you all see me?
Not only do we see you, we see a tremendously beautiful background. Is that real or is that fake?
It is real, but it's not current timing.
Okay, I get you. Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I'll just share some quick feedback, because that's what you're looking for, right, Steve?
Absolutely.
So listen, guys, a really impressive presentation. I think it's inspiring what you've done, incredible amount of work. The notes that I was taking, and I have had, of course, the chance to review the submission previously as well, but the graphics are beautiful. The video is very well done, very professional. But I think it continues down not only in the renderings that are very evocative, but in a lot of the planning moves that are also very evocative. And I would also say poetic, some of it, your choice of language, imagery, even branding elements are very captivating. And I also want to see it happen. There's a lot of ideas that you're proposing that I think would be fantastic. I think anyone who's lived in Sudbury for some time would love to see Junction Creek reach its full potential and not be this buried asset, if you will. Using the alleyways and the rights of ways for better use is a great idea. I appreciate the nod to the Living Building Challenge as well. Merci. Appreciate that. And I think this is incredibly strong. So I'm very happy with this submission, and happy to dig in deeper with all of you, but I'll stop there for now.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Who else wants in on this?
Cheryl's here.
Go, Cheryl.
Well, I love the idea of sap, because we all know it's very nourishing, and sap from trees can be both food and it can be medicine. So I think maybe you've got the right medicine for us. One thing that I love is the bike with skis. I'd love to try one of those. Getting around would be a lot of fun on a bike with skis. We talk about the fact that there's an aging population, and, having things close in this downtown area is so vital, that for, multi-generational families to be able to thrive. So I believe I see that in what you're presenting here. And I certainly love the step back buildings so that they don't create too much, of a blockage of sunlight. And for sure, bringing the river to the surface would be a beautiful thing for downtown Sudbury. But I also like how you're weaving together the cultural, the citizens' input. I think this is very important, and I wonder, this is something that is going to take a lot of participation and a lot of engagement. And I think what you're setting up here is a nice dialogue as well for people. Do you see how this could be presented to people with the opportunity for them to give their feedback?
Well, there are, for example, I don't exactly know how to translate it, but firms that specialize in these kind of consultation, and it's really an expertise on its own, to go and to survey and ask and really get the feedbacks and opinions.
Terrific. Anything else, Cheryl?
No, I totally love the nurturing aspect of SAP. It's great. It's beautiful. It's poetic.
Great. Thank you for that. Anybody else?
Hi, it's Shannon. I just want to congratulate the team. I thought it was a beautiful execution. I thought that the renderings, the ambiance were both evocative and seductive. I'd like to call out, my hero, Jane Jacobs, who wrote the seminal Death and Life of Great American Cities, who also talked about this notion of the city as an ecosystem. So not only is it an ecological recovery, making homage to the larger regreening efforts writ large, but I think it's bringing into the city that scale of recovery. But I also, at the same time, like how you're revealing the kind of you know, I guess the rail, the post-industrial landscape. I think it's brilliant how you've tackled, you know, the parking lots, like the alleyways, and re-imbued them with new kind of collective public programs. I think also the notion of this is a winter city, it's a Nordic city. So your renderings have really captured and told us how that might be inhabited all year round for our robust citizens. And again, the kind of the daylighting of both Nolan and Junction Creek are also an interesting kind of catalytic, bold move that again kind of layers all these programmatic aspects with the landscape recovery writ large. So again, congratulations, a beautiful project. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Who else wants in?
It's David. I just wanted to pop in a couple of quick comments. Thanks, Steve. First of all, I just want to say that I want one of those Blade Runner snowmobiles that you've got going down your street. Those are really cool. But I just wanted to add to the other comments, which I also agree with, that I think the challenge of this, the design challenge here was to come up with a coherent and as Shannon described, evocative vision for the city, and still, which you've done. But what I really appreciate is the scale of the project. Your solution also seems manageable. In a sense, you kind of went into the city in very precise ways and made enough changes that we can all imagine this happening, and your renderings feel like it really could be Sudbury in 2050, and that's been a kind of an interesting across the board. We see such a variety of that, but I just wanted to congratulate you on, because I think that was one of the greater challenges of this design challenge, and I think you guys nailed it. So, merci beaucoup.
Thank you, David. Well, all the jurors have had a chance to weigh in. Any of our invited community guests want to weigh in as well? Speak now if you want to.
It's Katie here.
Katie, go ahead. You're up, Katie.
I just messaged Terry. I said, I'm not sure how and what's appropriate to engage, so why not just do it? I moved. I think it was beautiful. And from someone who has a sustainability hat on at all times, running an environmental firm, I really appreciated your view, possibilities. I see stormwater management, the vision of sustainable development with planning for 2050, and how we need to think about urban centers differently with climate change. So I could definitely envision that. And I think Dr. Fontaine's points are very relevant in the fact that we could see ourselves. It was enough of a vision, but also enough of a tangible future. So bravo, it's very beautiful. Merci.
Thank you, Katie. We got probably another minute left before we have to go on to the next team. So Dennis or Wendy, either one of you want to comment?
Steve, sure. I want to say one other thing. There's the beauty of the birch bark canoe is made from pine gum, which is a type of sap, ash, and bear fat. So a usable vessel made with all of the natural elements. And again, if it wasn't for the sap, the canoe wouldn't hold together.
Beautiful.
Very good. Wendy, last comment in this segment.
Okay, all I was going to say is I loved the vision. I thought it was fantastic. I can't express any better than any of our experts who have already commented have, other than to say, wow, drawing the number one spot, that's a tough one, because now everyone's comparing, your project to whatever is coming next. So good luck. I think you've got a really good chance in this competition.
And presenting in their second language, no less. Dennis, I'm putting you on notice right now. You're going to get the first comment after the next presenters that we hear. And just a reminder to everybody who is going online to vote, this is team 0322, 0322, Sev from Canada. That's the team if you want to vote for them, 0322. Okay, very good. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Now you get to relax. You've presented, and you can enjoy the rest of the show a little more relaxed than you have been over the last 20 minutes. Let's hear from our next competitors. This is team 0582. This one is called Rewilding. Also from Canada, this is Sahana Dharmaraj, Jenna Lamb, Anastasia Renault, Taylor Kevin Kress, and Shannon McMillan. Take it away, team Rewilding.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening in. And as Steve mentioned, speaking in today, we have Kevin, Sahana, Jenna, Shannon, Taylor, and I'm Anastasia. So we are a team of Sudbury defenders and promoters who endeavor to highlight the distinctiveness of the city. We are former pit party goers, camp builders, snowmobilers. We've listened to the stories of Sudbury's elders and skated on Ramsey. We've had wine and cheese at the Fromo, tacos at Tuco's, and danced at the Grand at the Up Here Festival. We see the cool side, the weird side, that other cities might not understand until they've had the chance. We've enjoyed, we've experienced, we've lived Sudbury. Sudburyans come together to find creative solutions to their problems. Sudbury is a handmade city built by the people. The people of Sudbury build their own camps, their own ice fishing huts. They envision their own art and music festivals and forge their own paths through nature. Sudburyans even create their own nature. They are more than capable of dreaming up their own city, a resilient community created by the people.
Understanding all of this at a deep level, when tasked with thinking about the city again, we asked ourselves these big questions. What do we dream of? What do we aspire to be? Who will this benefit? What decisions will we be proud of? What will we leave behind? We also started thinking about Sudbury's identity and asked questions like, what defines Sudbury's identity? What do we want to be? What do we want Sudbury to be known for? And what's next? To know where to go, we have to know where we've been. Sudbury is an Indigenous land. That hasn't changed. But Sudbury has changed its identity from rail town to timber town to mining town to moon town to a town that has become internationally known for its outstanding achievements in environmental rehabilitation. By looking to Sudbury's past and having some ideas of the questions we asked ourselves, we propose rewilding as the identity for Sudbury's next 20, 50, 100 years. But what does that mean? Rewilding will be the process of allowing wilderness to reclaim or permeate through key opportunities in the urban fabric, to become the connective tissue that meshes the city's human spaces and cultural attributes seamlessly with nature, the backbone and driving force in Sudbury's next phase of growth. But why rewilding? It starts with a simple idea: foster the forests. We know they'll grow, they just need time and patience to get there. The process involves planting a few key species to jumpstart that growth. By 2050, you'll see the type of young forest currently found in the areas like the Lake Laurentian Conservation Area. By 2100, we could be living and benefiting from the types of forests we love going to camp for. We know there's key areas for improvement that the city's grappling with. The importance of rewilding stems from the inherent benefits embedded within the act of a radical and thorough regreening. Benefits that we've seen the city get before, but can be pushed even further with the right principles in mind. Rewilding, like regreening once did, could catapult Sudbury to the global stage and strengthen its place as the hub of the North. But this time it goes beyond regreening. This time it achieves much more by being the synthesis of the urban, natural, and human ecosystems. It does this because it will be open to all. It will bring together. It will be open to all. It will reclaim. It will innovate. It will adapt, and it will heal. So we're going to go through these sections now, beginning with it will bring together.
It will bring together the city primarily by reusing the train tracks as multi-purpose trails for the connective framework across the city and to the downtown. Zooming in, this bridges neighborhoods that were previously severed. We also propose finer grain connections such as laneways, greenways, multi-purpose trails, and reimagined walkable streets that make the downtown more accessible to all Sudburyans. People often ask, why invest in the downtown? The downtown is the ideal location to root rewilding, as its existing urban fabric is layered with rich history, but is porous enough to allow the landscape to permeate through. We can reunify the city by using key anchors or hubs to draw in different cultures and provide space for all demographics. It's about inclusion and placemaking. We want to enmesh the things that make Sudbury unique and what gives the city its vibrant essence, with flexible space for the story to evolve with projects like Place des Arts, the Junction, or any other future projects that the city may need.
It will be open to all. Rewilding is an intersectional approach to a regreening initiative. A colonial park is a deeply controlled space with a homogeneous experience. Rewilding, on the other hand, is about assembly. Through new encounters, new experiences can merge. We understand an Indigenous approach to the urban environment as a decolonial initiative, where diversity enriches both our greening efforts as well as the social dimensions of the city. We not only make room for future biodiversity, but also for the right to the city as a kind of wildness. We imagine the reclaimed rail yards as a site for reinvention and direct action, a place to organize and amplify the DIY spirit so readily apparent in Sudbury. So Sudburyans drive a lot. Where will we park? Understanding that rural communities are more reliant on vehicles, parking nodes facilitate transition to the downtown core and into microcirculation modes such as biking, snowmobiling, or walking.
And rewilding will reclaim. To create space for these unique DIY activities and provide opportunities for nature to return to the city, we make use of the reclaimed CN rail yard. This reclaimed land radically stitches together aspects of the northern identity with wild nature to facilitate the emergence of unique programs that are born out of the true desires of the community. Because rewilding isn't only about reclaiming land for nature, it's also about reclaiming land for the people. The Borgia neighborhood was a gritty and vibrant area of Sudbury's downtown, and this controversial neighborhood was bulldozed in the 1960s and replaced with what is now the Elm Place shopping mall. 60 years later, we believe it's time to reclaim the Borgia neighborhood for the people of Sudbury, developing this new Borgia node as a mixed-use residential neighborhood. Designed with an emphasis on cultivating diverse housing types, New Borgia will provide affordable housing and multi-generational housing while maintaining space for independent retail at the street level. But what about jobs? What will help Sudbury's economy? Well, rewilding will innovate. Rekindling Sudbury's lost identity as a forestry town, the Brady Street node will serve as a hub for new innovation in forestry research and education. Sudbury is already recognized across Canada as a leader in the field of science communication, and building on the success of the Living with Lakes Centre, Science North, and Dynamic Earth, the Brady Street Forest Habitat and Biological Science Centre will help promote tourism and educate the public on the benefits of sustainable forestry and design. Paired with this new science centre, a forestry research institute will help to develop and advocate for the manufacturing of value-added wood products in Northern Ontario. Standing alongside Sudbury's already thriving film, mining, and educational sectors, a revitalized forestry industry will provide another unique facet to Sudbury's economy. And thinking beyond just Sudbury, the return of wood manufacturing to the north could help bolster not only Sudbury's economy, but breathe new life into many other northern communities that have been devastated by mill closures in the past few decades.
And it will adapt. So through a set of principles, our Imagine Sudbury will adapt by a diversity of spaces, natural and built. This toolbox of guidelines will create an engaging built environment working symbiotically with nature to adapt to the changing needs of our culture, our planet, our rights, and our health. These include mixed-use developments, pockets of urban space, green roofs and gardens, stepping strategies, and mid-rise human-scaled facades. With the self-made nature of rewilding, a diversity of green space provides fortitude to Sudburyans in an ever-changing tomorrow. These include wild nature within the urban core to create a reconnection to our lands within the downtown, central civic spaces for citizens to meet and protest, creating a place animated by Sudburyans, and lastly, lawns and accessible open green space to provide room to gather safely in the era post-COVID. Urban transportation is diverse and evolving. Considering the many ways Sudburyans move through the city, we imagined a hierarchy of streets and paths that would give flexibility to Sudbury's transportation needs, present and future. But what about winter? Well, Sudburyans are already used to forging their own paths through nature with snowmobiles, skis, or a good pair of boots. And rewilding prioritizes evolving transportation methods and facilitates activities like recreational winter sports.
Finally, rewilding will heal. Using these building scale principles and connected pathway networks offers a healthier lifestyle that encourages walking and spending time outdoors. Whether it's work, home, school, or the grocery store, everything you need can be within a 15-minute walk. Does green space really matter, though? These COVID times have shown that access to green space is a highly valued piece of the urban fabric, and it directly correlates with the physical and mental health of a community. Because of this, providing equal access to nature is an important benefit of rewilding. Rewilding also creates habitats and fosters biodiversity. It provides air quality or improves air quality, and specific species can actually be used to help clean the soil. It manages rainwater and mitigates flooding, something especially important in the face of a changing climate. It uses taller vegetation to block the wind, making wintertime a bit more pleasant to be outdoors, and conversely cools the city in the summer by absorbing the sun's energy and shading the streets.
Rewilding will do all of these things, but not without you. We see Sudbury as a place for advocacy, a place where the people want to make noise, be loud, and be heard. The best vision for Sudbury doesn't focus on what's missing. It recognizes what makes us unique and looks to enhance those things so we can offer something authentic to the next generation. Rewilding is a proud amplification of Sudbury's diversity. It not only calls to reinvigorate the environment, it calls on the inventive spark within Sudburyans to free yourself of imposed limitations, to engage in public discussions, and to run towards change fearlessly. Even though this seems like an impossible task, how do we create a city that accomplishes all these things? The answer is clear. It is about designing the space, having the patience, and giving it care that it will grow. Growth grounded in the principles of things we talked about, like physical and mental health, human scale, diversity and equity, boosting communities, knowing your neighbors, comfort and safety, and stewardship and pride. And with those principles in mind, rewilding is a change in perspective. It's an ever-evolving ideal. It's not bound to a timeline, and it is a state of mind. Allow yourself to dream big. This city has so much to offer. You're worth it, Sudbury. We are the Hot Pink Neutrinos. You can share your thoughts at hotpinkneutrinos.ca/rewilding. Thank you, merci, and miigwech.
Hot Pink Neutrinos. Okay, like that. Thank you very much to the team Rewilding. They are from Canada. And now let's get some feedback. Dennis, I think I promised you the first comment on this, so go ahead.
You're on mute.
Dennis, are you on mute?
Here I am.
There you go. All yours.
I love the scheme, and I loved how your graphics just underpins everything as you move through it. Really great. The compelling power in your scheme to me was wilderness as a connective tissue, and one that allows the urban fabric to develop within it over time and of its own volition. There is a open works space to your vision that allows it to fall into place as you move through time. And within that, you move the city from a grid to a mesh where it can literally fill itself in. And I like that open-endedness in your scheme. And I like the fact that what it does, it just lets time handle the volition of independent enterprises in the fabric, because time in urban development is a critical force. And the fact that you've trusted it through wilderness to bring, the cycle of nature and the cycle of, the built environment to work together, to me is the compelling force of your scheme. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Dennis. Cheryl, I see your mic is hot. Does that mean you want to come in next?
I'm happy to comment. Number one, I love the hot pink neutronics. I think it's kind of obvious. I think about this as becoming a new blue zone. Blue zones in the world are where people live well into their, year 100, because they live in a community that has beautiful nature around them. They are connected to multi-generational environments, and they walk to get their bread or pick or see the doctor. They not everything is about getting in a car and going somewhere. And I think that's what we've got here. I see this interconnected, woven, as Dennis said, this beautiful mesh that would evolve. And I just think for young families and as I go back to this aging population, which is a reality, having these pathways and connected places and the beauty and protection that trees give us. I was out in a bit of a snowstorm on Sunday. I was very happy to have trees protecting me from the ice pellets that were coming directly at my face. So, I do think that the shade in the summer and the protection from winds in the winter, but also just this beautiful feeling that you'll end up with in this community, and again, to have it become a forest city. I like that very much.
Thanks, Cheryl. Who else from our Super 7 wants in?
Hi, it's Shannon.
Hi, Shannon. Go ahead.
I love the video. I've watched it over and over, and it's inspired me to kind of start the revolution. So I mean, it was interesting you mentioned it. I was thinking obviously of Henri Lefebvre's The Right to the City. So he was a French Marxist philosopher and sociologist who critiqued everyday life and the right to the city and the production of social space. So like at once, you know, the video, you used footage of the Black Lives Matter movement that took place in Sudbury. I think they, there was the painting on the street and the protests and demonstrations around that. But you also mentioned as well the right to nature and ecology, right? You've spoken about the health benefits, the mental health benefits of access of everyone to nature, and even now the COVID benefits, right? How do we retrofit or include nature for COVID and make it more equitable? I agree with the comments. This, again, I think numerous schemes work across the disciplines of architecture, landscape, and ecology, as well as urban design. I think, again, this notion of a kind of connective tissue that's perhaps happened at a larger regional scale. You're bringing it really deftly into the city, but at the same time, you're connecting. I liked how you talked about like alternative mobilities that, as we know, like in Sudbury, it's a very robust like community that does go out cross-country skiing in the middle of a blizzard, or right, who could like skidoo to the university. So I thought that was excellent. And again, the idea that you're taking the specificities of those landscapes and thinking about how they could be buffers. I like the typologies. And maybe just finally, I think you were one of the few schemes who really tackled that rainbow mall, right? And that was, of course, during the urban renewal that wiped out the Borges neighborhood and relocated things to the, you know, more of a like suburban model, although in the 70s, to the, you know, the strips and the big boxes. So I think that was really brilliant. And I liked the kind of finer grain of urbanism with which you injected into that and the rest of the city, and these, you know, these rights or these reclaiming of the commons. So thank you very much. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you, Shannon. A couple of more minutes for comments here. Who else wants in? Katie, you're in.
Thank you. Just 30 seconds. Without commenting on technicalities and the pieces that you've, without being redundant on some of the other comments, I would just commend you on intentional. I think everything you showed, the words, the images, this theme, I felt like everything had a genuine intention behind it and chosen well. So I would just commend you on your approach to this project. Was really exceptional. Everything felt like it had intention behind every image, every word, when you spoke, how you spoke, what timing. It was beautiful. And I was writing furiously some of the excellent words you chose. Congratulations.
Thanks, Katie. I guess we should say at this point, we have about 3 times as many people participating in this Zoom feed as we did when we just signed on. So, and people are in the Q&A function, they are sending along questions. And we have one here, and I should just put it to you guys. And I guess Team Rewilding, you guys figure out who you want to have answer this question, but it is a question that came in from Facebook. Here we go. TVO's Northeastern Ontario Hub reporter here. I guess this is Nick Dunn. Some of the challenges in connecting the downtown to the rest of Greater Sudbury seem to stem from rail infrastructure and geography, namely hills and rock outcroppings. How does this group plan to address, hang on a sec. Tone, you got to turn off your mic. Tone Dreesen, we're hearing all of what's going on in your home and we don't want to hear it. Here comes the question. How does this group plan to address the landscape challenges of the city when connecting the downtown? Tough question. Who wants to answer it?
I can start here.
Jenna, go ahead.
So I think one thing that we found with the rails is that there are some, like, you know, the rails already do that challenge where they do cross the, like Sudbury's very hilly, and they do cross those hills. And we've, you know, even when we lived in Sudbury, we didn't even notice some old train tracks or some things that upon further discovery, you know, they do connect, like New Sudbury to the downtown has an old rail line that goes right through the wetland in the middle of the city that kind of provides a framework, and then building upon that framework, you know, you can keep adding more and more layers. But definitely, I think that's why we gravitated to using the rails in the first place as that, because they do help bridge that.
Great. Okay, let's tell everybody here that was Rewilding from Canada. Équipe 0582, team 0582. So if you're voting on the website, sudbury2050.ca, that's the team you vote for, 0582. Well done, gang. Thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Steve.
Let's go on to our third presentation. This is team 1116. It's called Elementary Urbanism, Urbanisme Élémentaire, also du Canada. We have Jesse Le Cavalier, Jake Rosenwald, Jennifer Chow, Tran Michael Weidman, Connor Stevens, and Siki Wang. And we pass it over now to team 1116, Elementary Urbanism, Urbanisme Élémentaire. Vas-y. Oh, and I should say, Wendy, I'll give you the first comment coming out of this.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. All is looking good with the screen, I hope. But thank you so much for the chance to be here. Thank you for organizing this competition. Thank you to the other teams. It's really an honor to be here alongside such amazing and inspiring work. And we have two incredibly difficult acts to follow. So I'm glad I was third, because I don't know. It's intense, but amazing competition. So thank you for that, and thank you also to the team. Steve just mentioned them, but my team: Jake Rosenwald, Connor Stevens, Jennifer Tran, Siki Wang, and Michael Weidman. Amazing group of people who I feel incredibly lucky to have had the chance to work with on this project. So the title of our project is Elementary Urbanism. We borrow it from an article by scholar and activist and politician Winona LaDuke and geographer Deborah Cohen, who describe, they outline a path to a regenerative economy through this idea of the elementary infrastructure, the infrastructure that might support a city. And so we start with a really straightforward question. What would a city be like if infrastructure was directed toward nourishing and supporting its population? So elementary urbanism is a strategic framework that imagines a middle-out approach to urban design and to governance. It's not a top-down model of state redevelopment, but it's also not a bottom-up model that depends either on market forces or individual ingenuity, but instead we build new cooperative community organizations that support incremental, deliberate, and collective self-determination. So the three basic pillars of the project: one is to stimulate a regenerative economy as an engine of urban transformation, and two, to develop a strategic framework as a decision-making tool, and then three, to prioritize self-determination to foster local control and identity. So we have 6 principles that have guided the way we've been thinking about this project. The first is don't extract, cultivate, to transition from an extraction industry into industrious cultivation by embracing metabolic and ecological principles to develop a recuperative, restorative, and regenerative economy. To use local infrastructures to recenter communities, to deploy infrastructure upgrades as catalytic elements and anchors for an expanded network of rail infrastructure. These new nodes facilitate access to resources, support food sovereignty, and improve social, physical, and economic well-being. We should make infrastructure social. We can create new cooperative entities to manage collective investments and to guide local decision-making. Because after all, the economy is how we live. It's not some abstract thing. What if we made residents' well-being the measure of a region's success rather than economic growth? If we put people before profit and use infrastructure to keep resources in Sudbury, we can share them with the residents. We can spur growth by embracing a history of rail infrastructure as an organizing element of the city. If we extend the rail network into neighborhoods and upgrade rolling stock to share assets and resources and introduce new amenities. And finally, we can accept the human in nature. And we see the landscape of Sudbury as an asset to cultivate, not a resource to extract. And we accept that the mine and the history of the place is part of nature itself. We embrace it and let something new grow, something both wild and regenerative. So the proposal is to look at two of the fundamental engines of urban transformation, the economic engines and also agency of citizens. And so we start by looking at the existing processes that are already happening to see how we can intensify those, especially within the mining operations. So we look to transition to a suite of regenerative economic practices: energy production, reforestation, timber production, as well as new forms of education, research, healthcare, and recreation. And so we do this by using a model of industrial ecology, by looking at the existing resources and seeing where we can start to intensify these through the mines themselves. And so we start by thinking about timber production, both within the mines and around it, through a series of continuations and intensifications of forest production, which in turn stimulates CLT industry and expertise. We look to food production through the mines themselves, through cold storage, but then also through other forms of food forests, like some of the ones that are already happening, but those become part of a much larger network of food distribution. And then we also look to forms of economic input through tourism, especially around a proposal to make the Sudbury Basin Geopark as a new form of federally designated preserve to focus on the history of the mining industry and the mining landscape. And then waste closes the loop here to produce this virtuous cycle of this metabolic resource approach. So all of that, the idea is all of this will then become an economic stimulant to reinvest in the city itself. And so the model of growth here begins with initial spurs, rail spurs from in the core, and then into local community nodes. And these are what we're calling commons corridors that will become sites of investment. And then these pink zones are what we're calling public aggregators that will become sites of rotating local amenities. As the phase, in the second phase, the spurs go further into the various neighborhoods and begin to support community-driven transformations within each of these neighborhoods, which I'll talk about in a second. And then as the phase continues and matures, local light rail loops begin to connect neighborhood to neighborhood, all of which then connects back to downtown. So the idea with the repurposing of some of the rolling stock is to produce a cyclical distribution of amenities. So if there's a regenerative approach here, the resources that are being produced within the city then get distributed throughout the neighborhoods through a series of mobile amenities that will come at different cycles throughout the day or throughout the week. So for example, a medical unit would come to you rather than you having to go to it. Something like a winter garden might come seasonally, but then you might have a visiting artist come for some period, some few days a week. But then something like a theater might appear the way that maybe the circus would come to town, in an unpredictable way, where through this process, you would have this cyclical process of transformation. Within a sort of more detailed neighborhood view, we end up with, this is very low resolution for some reason, we end up with local transformation at the neighborhood scale, where you have growth within the level of the parcel. And the idea here is that we would have a high degree of self-determination as each neighborhood can decide how best to reinvest and transform their neighborhood. And then at the scale of downtown, the transformation of the core is driven by what we're calling two commons corridors, which connect from the transit hub to the Rainbow Center, soon to be repurposed. And we're imagining these corridors to become armatures for growth that would be linked to building transformation. So through a series of incentives and zoning guidelines, we would incentivize the cataloging of existing building stock, and rather than assume that we should be rebuilding everything, that we might consolidate around more sustainable models of growth through these armatures that might then allow more open space to exist within the city while also not dispossessing existing residents. So instead, you would have the option to buy into a series of new settlements and new organizations. As the scheme matures, these armatures support a very diverse architectural language. So what you're looking at here, these are not meant to be specific proposals, but these are sort of zoning diagrams that describe a version of what the city could become. So the expansion and refashioning of the rail network also allows for the transformation of existing rail lands that form part of a larger network throughout the city. And then through this investment in CLT, the downtown becomes also the site of the visitor center for the geopark, as well as a series of new governmental institutions, new friendship center, new food forest. So the downtown becomes the kind of showcase for the project. And we envision a thriving Sudbury by transforming its sites of extractive mining operations into a suite of regenerative economic practices, food cultivation, energy production, reforestation, and timber production, as well as new forms of education, healthcare, outreach, and recreation. Thank you.
Jesse, thank you very much. Wendy, I think I promised you the first chance to react to that, so the microphone is yours.
Thank you. I was fumbling around trying to find the right little buttons to click to unmute and to put my camera back on. First of all, thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. When I was viewing these presentations yesterday, the spurs and loops idea really grabbed me. I really liked the neighborhood to neighborhood connections. I thought the rail hubs were brilliant and could really enhance our community and maybe cut down on a lot of local traffic. Local food, the idea of using old mines or possibly even functioning mines, not really sure where you were going with that, but food security is so very important and so many people are truly lacking that it's really a problem that if we can ease it or solve it is fantastic. Your geopark idea has been talked about by a few groups in our community. So I thought that was really interesting to see you bring that into your presentation as well. And measuring residents' well-being as the measuring stick, rather than affluence, like how healthy are we? How satisfied are we? I just loved that whole idea. For me, that's really aspirational and really puts important things at the top of the chart. You did add a biosolids generation plant, and I was wondering if you were going to talk very much about it. I liked the diagram that you had that showed it tied into the bigger picture, but I'd really like to learn more about how that ties into the bigger picture. And of course, one of the challenges with plants like that is the business case has to add value instead of adding cost. Do you have any ideas on that you could add or that you would care to add, or am I asking you to get too granular?
Jesse, over to you.
Thanks. No, thanks for those comments and for that the observations. I think I'm glad to hear that there's enthusiasm for the geopark idea. I mean, we were picking up on some of the things that we were finding, and likewise that the foregrounding of well-being. I mean, somehow it seems like that should be something that's not surprising for us, but this is, one of the things that I think is really important to kind of keep asserting that as a priority. In terms of the biosolid energy conversion, I mean, I think for the scheme, it's a part of a larger industrial ecological approach where we're trying to be creative about how to find ways to capture as much energy possibilities as we can. And so within the process of food networks, we have opportunities to then translate some of that into forms of energy production. I think that part of our thinking here is that through some kind of reconfiguration of these priorities, then the question of what value adding becomes shifts if the priorities are proportionally shifted as well. And so the typical kind of value proposition might be recast if the priorities can get reorganized. So, so maybe I'll leave it there. But I think that's I really appreciate the question, because I think this is exactly what we're interested in.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Wendy. David, I see you. Do you want in?
Sure. So thanks for your presentation, Jesse. Great project. One of the things that I really thought was well developed was this idea of continually reactivating our existing mining networks, the subsurface production areas, and I think that's this definitely has some traction for the future of the city, as well as the idea of keeping the resources in Sudbury and a lot of the kind of economic moves you had made. I had a question for you. I'm curious about the PRT, or I guess that's the personal rapid transit, and the extended rail networks. And with a city of this scale, I'm wondering about these networks in terms of population density and balancing those out together. And if these kinds of networks to be proposed to bring back to Sudbury require a certain density or densification that you're anticipating.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. I mean, I think one of our ideas is that that some of this, the scheme envisions a thriving city where population is increasing, but we do know that there's an issue, a challenge of dealing with an aging population. And so our thought was that again, if we can, one of the premises of the proposal is that some of the standard measures of sort of viability might get recast a little bit, so that we might be able to make that investment in smaller scale regional transport or smaller scale neighborhood transit if it's valuable to the community. And so I think from our point of view, we're thinking forward into the models of kind of smaller scale, very nimble PRT models, almost like like an urban elevator or something like that. Something that doesn't have the totally heavy investment of a typical urban transport system, but something that's much lighter and much more nimble, but that could allow for transport from neighborhood to neighborhood in the model, maybe of some of the more advanced experiments that we're seeing. So we had the scheme in Mostar, for example, was on our minds. And so we're imagining that in 20 years, or 30 years, when this is maturing, that would be something that would be within reach, and also would be available without maybe through a different, let's say, framework, again, around value.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposal, that transport network. Thank you. Good answer.
Thanks, David. Shannon, I see you want in.
Thank you very much, Jesse. What I really loved about or appreciated about the scheme is that you really embraced or celebrated the rail infrastructure and the extraction landscapes. And in fact, I think very few, a lot of the schemes either covered over the railways or regreened the railways. So I really appreciate that you brilliantly tackled that. And I was even just thinking myself, living here in the downtown core, the kind of choreographies or the everyday rituals of the train that are really prevalent, running, with the track systems always running throughout the night, and the sounds and almost the soothing sounds of that. So I actually really appreciated that you tackled that and thought about the reusage of that. I think also the point you raise, again, kind of rethinking, distribution networks or logistics. I think certainly, even with COVID, I think we see a lot of people from the southern cities in Canada kind of fleeing out, north. Perhaps it's like the northern migration, either with, retirees or, again, people wanting to see kind of larger landscape spaces. So I think, within that, I think, food security is really essential. I think with the COVID, that was really brought to light because, again, being a quote more northern town, we realized how reliant we were on these kind of, food distribution systems for the country. So I think there's been kind of, as a result of that, there's been a lot of more kind of urban agriculture that has happened, or urban farming, etc. So I think that's really interesting. And again, We unfortunately have a massive homeless population, a massive unemployment. So I with this scheme, I really, really appreciate the kind of the consideration of the ecologies and economies at kind of the larger scale. So thank you very much. I congratulate you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. Dennis, do you want one word? You want to take the last word in this segment? Unmic, Dennis. Sorry, unmute, I mean.
Yeah, I really like the way you brought, the economy, ecology, and the socio-cultural together and in step. I think that broad platform is often a missing platform in smaller mid-sized cities. And I also think that just focusing in on two issues, your words make infrastructure social is so critical. I mean, if we look back at the Sudbury to Coppercliff relationship, it had a rail line, an electric rail line. And so it was about making little things happen in a mid-sized city. And I think your dream of how that can happen can really work. But if we start to view simple things like transportation as social entities first, rather than mechanical and engineering entities, I mean, all you have to do is look at Sudbury and say, as a social system, if I can get somebody in a suit to use the bus, like they do in Toronto, I've got a socially equitable system. If I can make a student use it, it's socially equitable. And your rail system as not just a metaphor, but a real link for transportation, I think is really a simple little arrow that can go a long way in a community like this. And it also speaks to the ability of the urban core to reach the regional level. Okay, it has that. And that's a really critical issue in mid-sized cities, particularly if you're out of the the southern cornucopia of cities, because one of the dilemmas of the city of Sudbury, like other mid-sized cities, is that the core and the non-core are not coherently moving together. And I think the fact that you can allude to that is really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Jesse, thank you for that presentation. We want to remind everybody that there is a People's Choice Award and money that goes along with that. So go to sudbury2050.ca and you can vote on your favorite choice for the evening. We want to let you know that that's Team 1116, Team 1116, Elementary Urbanism Alimentaire, Équipe 1116, Jesse Le Cavalier. Thank you for that presentation. And now, who am I going to put on notice here? Katie, I'm going to give you the first kick at commenting from the next team. And this is Team 3478, Team 3478. They are from the United States, and their subject is called Pollinating Sudbury. Dongse Kim and Tommy Yang. Pollinating Sudbury, it's over to you.
Good evening. Bonsoir. Our presentation will follow a short introduction video. So we'll share the screen. Pollinating Sudbury, curating scenarios is our vision for Sudbury. Good evening. Bonsoir. I'm Dongse Kim.
And my name is Tommy Yang.
Thank you for allowing us to share our vision with you today. We believe pollinating Sudbury, curating scenarios starts with you. Today, we strongly believe Sudbury can thrive. We also trust that our vision and good urban design can help Sudbury's people to prosper. Urban design can be evolutionary as well as revolutionary. Nonetheless, we also recognize that urban design is not a panacea. Architects and urban designers often jump to conclusions by produce projects of amicable consensus. However, we're interested in producing a vision and framework that helps Sudbury's people to formulate meaningful questions over reductive solutions. Our framework reveals Sudbury's controversies, frictions, and antagonisms. Frictions will always exist. However, our question is, how do we translate these frictions into productive dialogues through urban design? So how do we do that?
As a starting point, we use the timeline as a tool to understand the land through a geological timescale and remember the First Nations. The geological formation of land brought about a human-privileged resource extraction economy, where humans become the resource extractor. They engender a thriving resource extract economy, which also brought about externalities. However, we believe in the power of positive feedback and adaptive learning framework that can recalibrate this resource extraction economy to reimagine the future of Sudbury. Pollinating Sudbury engages critical cartography as a method and maps out important natural resources such as the Junction Creek, Wanapide, and Vermilion riversheds, and frames them as sites for planting social and green practices. This first map showcases the Iniko eruption and its resource extract economy. But when we begin to delayer the site, we see that Greater Sudbury area is an intersection of ecologies made between the Wanapide and Vermilion sheds. Understanding the relationships between the eruption and natural ecologies allows us to see opportunities for planting social and green practices. This kind of framing of significant natural resources in the Greater Sudbury area can engender new eco-districts that are made up of existing vegetations, productive landscapes, and new preserves. And when we zoom into the ground, we can begin to ask the question of, what if designers can use our methods as a form of sensing and raising awareness of our environment to build a mutual relationship between humans, things, and the land? We know that this was done in the past, such as the Sudbury Regional Municipalities Reclamation Project that started to remediate contaminated lands between 1978 to 1984, which not only addressed soil contamination, but was exemplary in that it was a visionary project that involved multiple stakeholders and emerging technologies throughout the process. Learning from this past, our vision is to amplify the reciprocal relationships between people and nature, and use the remediation and regreening process as a medium to promote stronger relationships between its constituents. These actions of pollinating, sowing, nurturing, and harvesting not only becomes a new morphogenetic way of living, but also a way of building coalitions, stewardship, and awareness between the people of Sudbury. First, pollinating Sudbury nurtures flora and fauna. Pollinating Sudbury aims to reassess the industries. Pollinating Sudbury values restoring human rights and justice. Pollinating Sudbury sparks imagination of dynamic trajectories. Pollinating Sudbury creates new disciplinaries. Ultimately, our vision is to reveal the true potential of Sudbury to its people through our mappings, timelines, and scenarios by engaging its existing history, resources, and human capital. We begin to ask, where do we start? When do we start? And if not us, who? And if not now, when? Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Can I, just because you're our first international contributor this evening, can I ask, Dongse, where are you from?
I'm based in New York.
Based in New York, and from there originally?
No, it's complicated, but I was born in Korea, grew up in New Zealand, in Korea, and now I'm living in the US. So
You're right, that is complicated. Tommy, how about you?
Well, I was born in the US, but I'm here in New York. And my family, my parents were refugees of the Vietnam War that came out from Laos in the late 1970s. And so here I am.
Understood. That's wonderful. Okay, Katie, I think I promised you the first kick at this, so go ahead.
Thanks. I'm not a Sudbury native either, but I certainly consider this home and where I'm now raising my young family. So I'm also an import, but loving it. And clearly you could see your appreciation and recognition of this beautiful city that we have. So I want to applaud that. What really stuck out to me, and I don't know if you did it intentionally, but maybe I'll just call maybe an emphasis to it, is the thought of pollination. I'm waiting a bit for the bees. I was waiting for this, something about bees. And I don't know if you thought of it or looked at the veins, but there are quite a few literatures that suggest that pollinations and bees are one of the main abilities of us to achieve a lot of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Like 15 of 17 of these goals can be achieved through pollination. And so when I was listening to you think about, how we rely on bees for pollination, for medicine, for food, for the way we think of our infrastructure and planning in the hives. And I really drew a lot of parallels. I was more and more, as you kept talking, I almost wanted you to keep talking because I was uncovering these, multiple ways that we can achieve sustainable development together. So the theme I thought was incredibly appropriate. I loved the way you recognized this land and this area, and without having maybe too many specific examples, would have maybe appreciated a few more specificity in the presentation. I do really love your call to action, the accountability that we have, if not who, when, that leaving us with that ownership feeling. So congratulations on how you ended that. It was wonderful.
Great.
Thanks, Katie. Katie, now you got me curious. Where are you from originally?
Montreal.
And what's your favorite hockey team?
It will end my marriage if I answer that.
Okay. Mum's the word then. Okay. Got it. Who else from our Super 7 wants in?
This is Jason. I'm happy to provide a couple comments. If that's
Go ahead, Jason. Thanks.
Hey guys, great work. I really found this to be a very stimulating entry intellectually.
Jason, I don't know if you can flip your camera on, but that'd be great if you can, just so they can see you.
That's right. I've been
Appreciate it.
Hey guys, great work. I thought this was a very evocative presentation graphically, but also intellectually, as I was saying, and very, very sensitive as well. I really think that you guys really put in a lot of deep thought about this, and it seems like this is more either the beginning or a process that you guys are starting to use on things, because it's clear that to me that this is not your first rodeo of looking at ideas in this way. So this is really great to see, and I do appreciate you took also a historic lens to the work. Looking at the deeper history of the place. It's interesting as a jury, we're looking at multiple entries and there's a different filter that each team has on, some teams look through an economic lens, some through an ecological. and I appreciated the historic lens that you put in. So, you know, I really think there's a lot of interesting elements, and it's a very evocative presentation. I too want to see a bit more on the you know, on the actual planning paradigm for the city. But as a process, I think this is the beginning of something really, really interesting.
Thanks, Jason. Who else wants in?
I'll make a comment. This is
David, go ahead.
Guys, I just wanted to follow up what Jason said. I think this idea of using cartography in this very kind of James Corner way, I thought it was a really honest approach to the design challenge, given that you are not in Sudbury and given COVID allows nobody to come to Sudbury really. That kind of idea of looking for the latent potentials in the city through your mapping exercises, I thought it was really, really excellent. And I really want to compliment you and applaud you on the amount of research that went into this, because I think you really, everything from understanding the city to a certain degree down to the history and the ecology. And so, you know, even though you're not in Sudbury, I'm assuming have never been, I think that the graphics that Jason was complimenting really capture a bit about the city. And so, and it follows through that your solution is also process-based in that way. I thought that was interesting. It's very not formal at this point, but sort of opening up ideas and the kind of roadmap to thinking about how we do what we do, not what we do going forward. So those are all really strong. One small, I guess, critique would be when we're talking about First Nations, to the idea of remembering them. I think, you know, maybe honoring them is a better. Remember kind of sounds like they're not in part of the conversation, but that's a very small critique. But and I really, again, considering you're not from here, to acknowledge the importance of our reconciliation with our First Nations people. I really tip my hat to you on recognizing that and making that central to your project. So thank you.
Thanks, David. Who's next?
Cheryl can jump in.
Go, Cheryl.
You know, I think building on David's point, that I think honoring all aspects which you brought to light. Obviously, Sudbury was created by a giant meteorite, and that's what's given, you know, rise to the economy, the building of Sudbury. So, you know, putting that in the framework and respecting it is very, very important, and understanding the resource economy around the city. And then the human capital. So I think honoring all of those aspects is so vital. And on Katie's point about the bees, well, absolutely, all trees are even pollinated by insects of various kinds, but bees play a huge role in that. And I think it's an interesting addition to your proposal, your submission, with the idea of the pollination. And one of the side little things that I observed in your presentation was the acidity of the soil being able to be neutralized by limestone. Just something that I wasn't aware of. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that are going to be very reciprocal in what we can do with the landscape and with the soil, giving back the essential minerals that the soil needs to actually rebuild itself. Lots of great, I think with all of these presentations, every group is sort of highlighting something that's part of the whole picture. And I think, you know, you've brought some nice themes forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. Shannon?
Yes, I would just also congratulate you. You know, I think you've really focused on the kind of non-human engagement of architecture and urbanism and landscape. In fact, these are themes that we, you know, talk about in the studios that we teach here. And I was just kind of thinking, you know, kind of larger scale, and I do agree with David, I really appreciate the kind of mapping and the forays into understanding our city and its landscape without having been here. And I was even just thinking of the kind of buzz, pardon the pun, but the kind of reclamation that's begun to happen. Maybe it's because of COVID, but for example, I live in downtown Sudbury and there's black bears who wander across my yard, right? So the kind of you know, maybe the reclamation or recovery of the landscape, and again, kind of across scales, and the ideas of the kind of pollination, as you say, that can be a strategy for that, or like the so-called non-human participants who also have agency. And I think you've really tapped into a kind of deep-rooted, perhaps, ambitions of this community in its kind of part that it's played in the recovery of the landscape writ large, and now at the city scale. Thank you.
Shannon, out of curiosity, what do you do when you find yourself face to face with a black bear?
Well, I didn't find myself face to face. My neighbor has a camera and videoed it at 2 a.m, but I was just wondering who would overturn my garbage cans. But I know that others have seen the black bears walking down the main street in the middle of the day. So I guess fortunately or unfortunately, I haven't had that issue, but I'm not sure. I do have a bear bell I go out with when I go into conservation, so maybe I should take it out when I go downtown.
Very good. Anybody from our Silver Seven have one last comment? Are we good? Okay, very good. Gentlemen, thank you very much. A reminder for the People's Choice Award, this was Team 3478, cette équipe 3478, Pollinating Sudbury from the United States of America. Dong-Se Kim and Tommy Yang. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, we're halfway there. We've heard 4, we have 4 to go, and I think this would be at 6:39 p.m. Eastern Time on my watch. So I'm going to suggest we take literally a 5-minute break. 6 minutes. Let's come back at 6:45, a little bio break here. Everybody do what you need to do for the next 6 minutes, and it's 6:45 p.m. Eastern Time on the dot. We are going to pick up with our next team, which is Team 3802, Northern Traction. Okay, everybody? 5-minute break. We'll see you back here at 6:45. since I'd like to have each one of our jurors and invited guests kick off the post-presentation session. Shannon, why don't you haven't started one yet, so why don't I give you the first opportunity to respond after this next one. And to that end, let's introduce, this is team 3802. This is Northern Traction from Canada, Zane Carsan and Natalie Bellefleur. And just a reminder to everybody watching it, we're about halfway through. We've done 4 of our 8 presentations so far. We have 4 more to go. And at the end of the evening, you can go to the website, Sudbury2050.ca, and vote for your favorite presentation. We'll take votes up until midnight tonight. And the People's Choice Award is at stake. There's money that goes with that, not to mention bigger prizes as well, financial prizes for the winners of last night's group of 5 and tonight's group of 8. And with that, Northern Traction, the microphone is yours.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to present our proposal to you. With that, we'll share our screen and get started. City making is a conversation. It is constantly evolving and building off of what has previously been said. Sudbury is at a critical moment in its development in which a number of large cultural projects are being proposed and debated. There is a unique opportunity here to reimagine city planning from short-term interventions to long-term developments through new means of community engagement. What are the tools needed in order for cities to successfully engage with its communities? How can cities increase the number of voices contributing to city making, and perhaps more importantly, sustain those conversations in order to gather meaningful feedback from? Providing an easily accessible, well-moderated platform is essential to realize this. Our proposal is 2-part: crowdsourcing ideas through a city-based app from which conversations can be translated into urban gestures, and through cyclical iteration, those urban gestures can become implementable plans. Urban gestures are an intuitive way for the public to demonstrate and comment on city connectivity, similar to enacting a diagram through physical movement. Sudbury's diverse communities should have diverse tools available to convey ideas and communicate with one another. By providing a range of communication tools, a more inclusive discussion can exist. Ideas that gain traction on this active planning platform are digitally and physically incorporated into a model of Sudbury. While the digital model will be constantly evolving as new information is added to it, the physical representation offers a record of a snapshot in time. Upvoted ideas will be 3D printed and added to a physical model available for view at a prominent facility. This process of equitable engagement could have implications beyond 2050, with planning gestures becoming more and more attuned to Sudbury's public. Community-based iterations help shape the culture of the Canadian North. So we see the Sudbury of 2050 as conceived through a program of active planning and community engagement. Our proposal is a collection of urban gestures to start the conversation, and we begin with the hotly debated Stadium and Entertainment District.
Current downtown core cannot adequately accommodate a large program like that proposed at the Kingsway Entertainment District without expanding. Therefore, we propose the relocation of the stadium, casino, and hotel across the tracks at the site of the Energy Courts public parking lot, forming a public square directly across the Place des Arts. Structurally optimized catenary forms meet prefabricated CLT modules and glulam construction in Sudbury's new stadium. We believe an innovative approach to a key public program will bolster Ontario's construction industry around a sustainable vision and grow the downtown.
The economic and cultural success of this initial phase will support the developments of phase 2. This includes the redevelopment of the west side of Sudbury rail yards, which are planned for relocation outside the city. In addition, ecological and cultural development occurs across the city's underutilized lots.
With the stadium and entertainment district acting as a catalyst for growth, we intend to reimagine the rail yard and introduce Junction Park. Sudbury's history in extraction and recovery shows a commitment to reconstructing green space from post-industrial landscapes. We see Junction Park as an opportunity for Sudbury to import nature and culture to enrich the downtown. With places for entertainment and social gathering, Junction Park is a gesture that serves the growing downtown population and its neighboring residential quarters. We believe adaptive reuse to be a key sustainable strategy for reimagining the rail yards and its infrastructure. Wherever possible, architectural solutions that incorporate pre-existing structures offer a more sustainable way of growing the downtown. The large shed at the center of the rail yard becomes a multi-level gallery for celebrating Indigenous and First Nations contemporary artists and sculptors. The spaces of an industrial scale are flexible and can host a variety of events from workshops to public lectures and art exhibitions. Defunct rail cars are reused and become public furniture and infrastructure for the museum to display artistic work across the park. The old railway turntable becomes an open-air auditorium and bandshell that hosts entertainment throughout the seasons. Open-air entertainment venues offer the city a way of charting a post-pandemic world by building resilience into public space, outdoor and sheltered from wind by vegetation. Junction Park forms an axis of cultural and natural amenity with Junction East and Junction West, which are currently planned and underway. Junction West is planned to host an art gallery and library at the current site of the Sudbury Arena. Junction East is planned to host a convention center, privately operated hotel, and performing arts center to replace the Sudbury Theater. The Performing Arts Center offers an opportunity to animate Brady Street to make it more pedestrian friendly and help activate neighboring public spaces like Tom Davies Square and Memorial Park. We propose a double-fronted arts center, one end to Brady Street, the other end to an outdoor amphitheater at the current Shaughnessy parking lot. Thus, the Performing Arts Center can support exterior open-air performances as well as highly controlled interior performances. A small park surrounding the amphitheater completes the gesture and supports Sudbury's commitment to sustainably greening of the urban core. The park can support outdoor activity for the convention center and the growing population residing in the downtown. Phasing in residential density through infill can support the growth and activity of the downtown. With new residential construction, we propose the integration of micro-agricultural infrastructure to support community gardening along vertical neighborhoods. Sudbury has long been considered a case study for natural stewardship. Therefore, it is uniquely poised to lead the way from environmental rehabilitation to environmental partnership. We envision Sudbury of 2050 to be a model of resilience through urban farming and sustainable construction. Further, we propose the systematic elimination of surface lots for mixed-use programs and public space, and to consolidate parking into few yet efficient parking structures. These gestures free up the downtown to develop robust, welcoming, and safe civic space.
The newly developed east side of Junction Park is reclaimed for mixed-use development. Green terracing and ample shared space characterize this new CLT construction, supporting urban resilience and sustainability. New developments are sculpted to permit maximum winter solar gain and host vegetation to protect against summer solar gain. The formal strategy is built upon modules that allow for variation in form and direction to maintain view corridors, shield harsh winds, and minimize shading on neighboring property. In addition to retail and recreation, a range of housing options are envisioned, from long-term active living to affordable housing. This economic mix ensures equality and equity within the downtown core. Sudbury's downtown core is a meeting place of transport modes, from trains to cars to buses. We propose a gesture to connect 4 currently separate quadrants of the city and introduce pedestrian and bike-friendly circulation. This connected infrastructure is active, programmed, and green, connecting neighborhoods to the southeast to Laurentian's downtown campus, and traversely connecting the junction to the sports and entertainment district at Junction Park. We take the strategy of urban connectivity and apply it to a larger regional level. Zooming out from Sudbury's downtown core, there are a host of key landmarks and attractions, from the Big Nickel to Science North and the various nature trails scattered along Lake Ramsey. Let's connect these currently isolated trails and attractions to make them more accessible, resulting in a double loop system that wraps around Lake Ramsey and Dynamic Lake, tangentially meeting at the downtown core. Thus, a simple urban gesture can help Sudbury connect regionally, celebrating Northern Ontario's beautiful landscape. The goal is to grow Sudbury's urban core into a reflection of its commitment to environmental partnership and rehabilitation, of culture and industrial ingenuity. With these gestures and many more from community discussion and partnership, we aim to create Northern Traction. Let's continue the conversation, and thank you for your time.
Bonne idée, Nathalie. Continuons la conversation maintenant. D'accord. Zane, I'm having a moment of panic here. Did I mispronounce your last name?
Nope, that's fine. Wait,
When you say that's fine, that probably means I screwed it up. How do you say it?
No, I say it the same way. Carson is fine.
Okay, very good. That's Northern Traction, Team 3802. And Shannon, I believe you get the first comment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'd like to congratulate you for the brilliant community engagement with this project. That was very striking to me. I'm an urban designer, and I think this idea of really engaging through participatory planning from the bottom up or the middle down, and looking at really innovative tools of engagement. So, you know, the idea, even like your, I guess your graphic of, you know, the placing these catalytic parts of the larger urban proposal through, I guess, 3D printing, but also the idea that they're almost like a game. You put one down and there's a kind of catalytic response to it. I think it was amazing. And I think it's really, really relevant and appropriate for a community in Sudbury to think about how we do engage our public so that we don't just have developer-driven, you know, projects, but that we're kind of democratizing the shaping of the public realm. I thought that was amazing, and I think everyone can learn from that. So again, I really appreciated the programming of those larger kind of corridors of the rail corridor, the daylighting. I think you were daylighting the creek or the Nolan Creek. And again, as with some of the other schemes, appreciated the kind of palimpsest approach that you were recovering, you were making homage to a post-industrial landscape. I love the programming of the old rail cars at the same time as recovering, at the same time as kind of layering these new programs. It really respects, I would say, the scrappiness, if you will, or the grittiness that we have in Sudbury. So that was great. And then again, the kind of consideration from the inside out or the outside into the larger regional networks, and the idea that it could be a connective tissue. And then maybe just finally also like the innovation of CLT or mass timber that you used. I think it was good, like with the civic programs, that they were specific to a city. You adapted those typologies to a city scale by making reference to the street. And again, the housing range of typologies were excellent. So overall, I really congratulate you for a beautifully and even handily executed scheme.
Thanks, Shannon. Wendy, I see your mic is hot.
Oh, I would so love to speak to this. I have to say from the very opening, city making is a conversation. You had me, because that's exactly how I feel about development and dreaming things forward. I really love the active planning and engagement piece right off the top as well. Wow, what a great way to attack this project. Interesting ideas for the rail yards. I love the open air entertainment venues. You've spent a lot of time on green and performance space. The multi-level gardens and terracing really appealed to me too. Maybe it's the green thumb in me, I'm not sure. I love the district concept. But I really wanted to speak to you a little bit about timing. I'm interested in the timing, the way you had things staged. Right now, our downtown, like so many downtowns around the world, tragically is struggling with a huge opioid and homelessness issue. Can the residential piece wait as late as you've put into your presentation, or could it be moved forward? Do you have any thoughts on that? And before I shut my mic off, I also want to say that online, the video really pulled it together for me. So it was really, really well done. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Wendy, for your question. I think we struggled a little bit with how to present it in terms of the phasing, because if you might remember from our boards, we do have a phasing diagram, which we briefly show. And I think we really see the development of the parking lots as an opportunity for housing and densification to happen. And that's where do you want to take over a little?
Well, yeah, so that's where we see the affordable housing and lower income housing taking part. But the real catalyst that is, giving form to all of these interventions is really the very hotly debated stadium and entertainment district. And so we're suggesting a pattern of phasing and densification throughout the downtown, which starts with that hotly debated and pivotal, potentially very pivotal project. But we're also sort of pushing a system for public engagement. And if it's really what gains traction is this sort of lower income housing need and desire from the public, then certainly I think the funds could be set aside and priorities can shift. One of the values of this approach, we think, is that it lets policymakers and urban planners really have a pulse on what the public is thinking and what the public is feeling. So a social media-esque platform will enable policymakers with that kind of insight. And so in that circumstances, priorities can change. So possibly is the answer to your question.
Cheryl, I see your mic is hot.
Yeah, this presentation really excited me. The video really got my attention. I felt like I wanted to be there playing with the parts and seeing, how much light is coming here and would this building be better over there? But I want to stress that I think the importance of the stadium downtown. Obviously economics are very, very important. And, having that kind of that structure downtown with people coming there and using that facility will definitely be part of this regeneration of downtown. And I like where you've cited it. And I think that what you've done in the rail yards with the shed, again, I think beautiful, and the turning the turntable into the band shell. But ultimately, public engagement is number one. And I think what you've got with your app and the 3D printing, and that maybe there could be a presentation center where people can actively see this evolution of this plan developing, I think would be really great for the city of Sudbury and the citizens of Sudbury. And really enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. We've got time for a couple more comments. How about Katie and then David?
Thank you. To be honest, I really loved the video. I love the engagement. It was so fun for me. It was a lot of, your concept of finger on the pulse was definitely the way I felt, like you're really trying to get the engagement. It honestly felt like, to me, I walked through urban planning 101 or urban design 101. We talked about, transportation and land use and recreation. And, but I did echo a bit of what Wendy thought. And so, without to be too cheesy and talk a bit about triple bottom line and benefits to planet and profit, the people part did fall short a bit. So to Wendy's point about timing, I really felt that socioeconomic conversation, although we're getting people engaged and your engagement was large, I wonder if it's engaging broadly enough. And to Wendy's point about the lower income housing. So yes, people will play with it and engage, but are we missing a segment of those that are engaging? So just for feedback and thought what hit me, but very motivated watching this. Like, I think you're explaining to me where I'm living. So I really did enjoy it. And I learned a lot actually about urban planning. So thank you.
Thanks, Katie. David, last word to you.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think this is a very, very thoughtful project, guys. The whole kind of Instagram graphic approach really communicated and made your main message come across in terms of engagement with the community. And I guess, when I looked through this and I was thinking about this, and you may have already seen this, that Sudbury has a very active group of trolling on news stories related to this. People do participate, and yet I think as architects and designers, while the arena is one that's kind of pulled architects and designers into that conversation, But to have that kind of forum for that debate through design is a really unique opportunity that maybe exists in places like Sudbury more so than larger urban centers, for instance, that design and sort of, you kind of captured what the potentials of this competition has to create a kind of focal point for conversation. So I think the overall presentation was really, really effective in generating a conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Well done, Zane. Well done, Natalie. Thank you for your participation tonight. We want to remind everybody that the People's Choice Award, which you can vote on until midnight tonight at the website, sudbury2050.ca. And if you liked what you saw in this presentation, that's Team 3802, cette équipe 3802, Northern Traction from Canada. Zane and Natalie. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Thank you. So long. Okay, off to our next presentation. That's the 5th of 8. Here comes number 6. This is Team 4665. It's called the Woods Fellowship, also from Canada. This is Alexander Cassini, Daniela Leon, and Christopher Alton. The Woods Fellowship. Team 4665, the microphone is yours.
Great, thanks, Steve. Good evening, everyone. It's very nice to be here. Thank you to the jury and the community for this invitation to share a proposal. My name is Daniela Leon. I'm an architect with SBN Architects and Planners in Toronto and lecturer at McGill School of Architecture.
I'm Alexander Cassini. I'm a licensed landscape architect practicing in Montreal.
And my name is Christopher Alton. I'm a planner and I teach design at Ryerson and Waterloo. I'm currently completing a PhD that looks at the relationship between urbanization and resource extraction. Our proposal is a framework that positions Sudbury as a global center for research into the material, architectural, and urban potential of wood. Our proposal is entirely scalable, designed to be operational immediately while growing in phases that respond to changing conditions. Our proposal has 3 major components. The Woods Fellowship Program invites experts from various fields to lead applied studio courses and research alongside members of the public on the topic of wood. Woods Fellows develop their program at test sites located around Sudbury, working with wood as they relate to themes of civics, craft, nature, home, technology, and time. And a central hub for all research activities in the form of a publishing house, which will not only publicize findings through its press, but also contribute to a healthy and realized public realm. We bring technical expertise into conversation with local knowledge. A series of recommendations, codes, and manifestos will be published yearly and delivered to City Council with the intention of informing policy around the city. We understand transformative change as a collective process and are influenced by wood for its dynamic, open-ended, and place-based qualities.
At the core of our proposal is the Architectural Press and Publishing House. A keystone building in downtown Sudbury, the Publishing House will act as the central hub of the Woods Fellowship and 2050 Sudbury Vision. Sited in Tom Davies Square, the Publishing House is made up of 5 arms. Each arm is separated by a landscape courtyard that extends towards the square. This creates a sense of place and engagement with the community, situating itself as the new entrance to the square. Each arm houses a different function for the building. Starting at the exhibition hall, this arm serves as a main entrance and establishes a public face for the publishing house. Moving counterclockwise, the classroom arm holds the fellowship classes. The lecture arm is a space for public meetings, course reviews, and large group events. The office arm provides space for private meeting rooms, and the 5th arm facing City Hall is the Publishing House headquarters, with access to archive and research space below grade. The 2nd floor is a temporary residence of the rotating fellows, with 6 private rooms, breakout and reading space, as well as a large dining hall with access to productive roof gardens and kitchen. A canopy is elevated above grade and supports 2 distinct landscapes. A community garden sits at roof level where native plants populate the ground floor covered courts. The building is wrapped by a canopy that captures the arms, roof, courtyard gardens, and skylights. The Architectural Press is the hub of activities and research.
Our public outreach strategy evolves through cycles of research and advocacy generated by the Woods Fellowship Program. With this, we've been motivated to design a strategy that doesn't just promote inclusion within a process, but makes inclusion itself the process. So let me explain how you all watching could get involved and give you an idea of what becoming one of the hopefully many participants will entail. Each year, fellows respond to 6 themes by proposing research and studio curriculum based on their own expertise. Should you have interest, you could apply to become one of the fellows or join as a student and contribute in that way. Each fellow will run 1 course over 2 terms, the findings of which are digested in a summer curatorial course. Each course you take as a student will earn you 1 credit, and everyone who attains 5 credits during a 5-year cycle gains membership to the program's board, allowing you to vote on program matters, including evaluation of incoming fellowship applicants. So in this way, the program mandate is itself guided by fellows and students. And because priority is given to members from communities marginalized from the formal planning process, the findings generated from the program will inject critical voices and experiences into the conversation. Situated inside the publishing house, the program's primary outcome will be to publish research findings yearly, and each cycle ends with recommendations for Sudbury City Council. Each 5th edition will be conceived parallel to the official plan review. In this way, as a participant, you are also an author. And while these materials will be focused on having application within Sudbury, they will also provide the global design community a resource for cutting-edge material practices. Timber is becoming an increasingly relied upon resource for sustainable architecture, but its application at the urban scale remains understudied. While you will be able to see the product of your own work in your own backyard, you can also know that designers and communities working with wood, wherever they may be, will be on the lookout for your research, collectively creating, perhaps effectively, a Sudbury school of wood urbanism. These courses are based on 6 themes.
Our proposed courses investigate test sites throughout the city, from downtown to residential neighborhoods and into mining locations. As an open-ended process, our intervention suggests a myriad of possible futures and a confrontation with the histories that have brought us to our current environmental crisis. Located at the publishing house, the civics course investigates how architecture contributes to place, building out tools for the community to address critical questions of architecture and the public realm. The building will be accessible and is symbolic of the meaningful changes our program will advocate for. Elgin Street is seen as a uniting seam and will leverage artistic and cultural production as a chain of commercial craft sites, unifying the woods of the urban forest and wood as product. The craft course reestablishes small-scale production as a viable urban practice through sustainable scales, labor relations, and local distribution networks. In the nature course, a central forest on the rail lands will be a productive amenity with recreation facilities offering substantial health benefits to residents. Forestation will be an ongoing process where planting and production methods are demonstrated. A sustainably scaled paper mill will eventually supply the architectural press. This course offers the opportunity to understand the broader geological history of Sudbury and the 40 years of regreening efforts through the microcosm of the home. Based on identification of reforested pockets, this course will focus on these spaces and their surrounds. By improving, densifying, redeveloping, this course offers an alternative to building on more suburban land. Together, these hubs form a chain of active green networks. In this course, trees are directly able to contribute to the reduction of environmental harm in favor of environmental care. Mining operates at relatively short cycles from exploration to closure, but the toxicity from its activities have a longer memory. At 3 former mining sites, phytoremediation engenders new livelihoods. And finally, the Sudbury White River train romanticizes wilderness and allows for a frontier narrative to emerge from the landscape. Instead, by dwelling in contradictions, regional narratives will be written. Each year, the curatorial fellow will engage with the 5 course findings. This test site requires no physical change, but grants ownership to First Nation signatories of the Robinson Treaty. The train is pedagogy, instead instigates a move towards decolonization and land back.
Well, master plans are documents written by very few. For us, authorship is an important means of thinking through urban change. And as these test sites are established and begin to grow, so too will the community of people involved. The test sites themselves can be thought of as field laboratories, but the findings from this research will be delivered to City Council with strategies that can be taken up in Sudbury broadly. The Sudbury City Code book series will provide recommendations, for instance, in areas where craft production could bolster struggling businesses, or for brownfield sites capable of harnessing green infrastructure, or in neighborhoods looking to improve connectivity and air quality. Wood, we feel, has the potential to offer insight into solutions at all of these scales. Our proposal follows from a participatory tradition that has demonstrated urban resiliency and equity is enhanced when impacted communities lead in the process of transformation. Our proposal advocates from this position. But what this also means is that our proposal remains open-ended, and this indeterminacy follows from the open-ended nature or flow of wood as a material. Again, this is a framework and not a master plan. We've taken this as an opportunity to interrogate instead the economic, social, and cultural potentials of wood. We see wood and its production as a tool to imagine a new model of community-based planning and design. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Alexander, Daniela, Christopher. That's the Woods Fellowship, Team 4665. I think I may have forgotten to identify somebody as part of our jury that's going to go first. So let me just, Cheryl and David have not yet gone first.
Bouncing between two meetings here right now.
Will, you have to mute yourself. We're hearing about your bouncing between two meetings. Okay, so David, you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you, guys, for a really interesting proposal. Quite unique in terms of its theme and a really kind of compelling response to the design challenge. And one of the things that I think comes across for me is, in a good way, is a kind of uninhibited optimism for design and a kind of rebranding of our relationship to resources in the city. And so, you know, I think capitalizing on something that isn't well, it is a strength of Sudbury, but I wouldn't say it's one of our defining resource industries at this moment, but one that could be. So I think you guys really nailed that aspect of the competition brief. There is within that, I think there's also sort of how do I say it? By being so focused, there's also kind of it's missing sort of acknowledging some of the other strengths of the city, I think, in some ways, whether that be the mining or the health industry here. You know, that the city is a regional health center for northeastern Ontario. So there's a bunch of other aspects of Sudbury, I guess, that I would say that aren't focused on, but that doesn't, for me, take away from the overall proposal here, because this again is implementable. And I think so in the systems you're proposing, the diagrams and the kind of I really appreciated, and I think it was really effective tonight in your presentation, were the timelines based on the different themes and the way the courses work. Again, that's a very implementable idea and extremely well communicated and clearly presented tonight. So thank you very much for your work.
Thanks, David. Katie, I see your camera's up.
Just really quickly, I thought it was an interesting approach to pedagogy, not only for your experiential learning for the fellows you will put through, but for us as citizens. So really, we're learning through your pedagogy at the same time at City Council. What a great lens to do for this. And I'm really, I was drawn to your idea of testing, so sort of piloting. And so for me, my background is a bit of energy and community planning. And so how great to be able to test pilot sites, community energy, thinking about energy in our unique distribution with mining and heavy industry and local communities. So really started to make me think a bit more. I think it's a great, unique, as Dr. Fortin points out, proposal, but the pedagogy stuck out to me a lot. I'm impressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Shannon, you want in?
Yes, thank you very much. We actually had a very interesting conversation about this scheme as jurors. So I really appreciate this idea, even, you know, how we position the School of Architecture as a kind of, I guess, non-partial, like, advocate, if you will, for the community. And I really appreciated the kind of tactical strategies, one could almost say avant-garde of you know, working with the city and the community, and even this idea of, you know, learning from the landscape. I loved the kind of poetic nature of that rail, as you mentioned, that the group of 7, right, used to go out on. It was a painting rail, I think. So, and I also thought this idea of a kind of feedback loop, again, if you're treating both the urban and the landscape as a kind of laboratory or testing bed, as Wendy stated, and kind of coming back, and that it would have a kind of ongoing, you know, presence again as an advocate within the community in the city, were really quite brilliant. So thank you very much for a very provocative scheme.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Cheryl, I see your camera's up.
Hi. Thank you for this presentation. It was very, very thoughtful. And what really stuck out to me was the process here. And I think with a project like this, process is very, very important. And, you know, we need to have experts consult. I mean, you were talking about the fellows as experts that would come in, work with the community, work with the master plan, work with the city consultants. And I think this is very important because people, you need to flush it out. You really need to flush it out. And this is that process. That's what I see the fellowship as, a real process to success. So I think there's a lot of great aspects about this that should be embedded in how the city moves towards a net zero 2050. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any other last comments from our jurors or invited guests?
Sure, I'll comment.
Sure, Dennis.
First of all, I found this to be an extremely powerful, evocative, and as David said, inspirational premise for the future. I mean, what you've done is you've given us a framework for thinking about the future more so than I think seeing the future. And I think, you know, Umberto Eco talks about the open work as something which can have many interpretations. And you're using knowledge as a platform to develop and evolve over time. And I think the manner in which that knowledge can be filtered down into applied dimensions, whether they're bylaws or official plans, to me is so important, because a mid-sized city needs a way to think in addition to a way to see. And the fact that your thinking mentioned a word like an official plan, okay? I mean, that's a kind of thing to me that speaks about the ability to see a mid-sized city as relating to core and non-core areas. As a mid-sized city, we have to see the entire region and the core as one. And the fact that you've embedded the ability to look at the entire region and the core as one is so fundamental to the future of us like this. I mean, the best example would be what this arena has done to the city. It's created this binary relationship between core and non-core areas that needs to be taken away. We have to get back to a both and situation. And I think your knowledge-based framework does that. And I really, to me, think that is the real strength of what you have here. Very great work. Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Okay, a reminder to everybody watching this, Sudbury2050.ca is the website to go to. The People's Choice Award is at stake. You just heard from team 4665, cette équipe 4665, the Woods Fellowship from Canada. Alexander Cassini, Daniela Leon, Christopher Alton. If you like them, go to the website and vote for them for the People's Choice Award. And can I also point out, we do have at the bottom of the screen that Q&A function. So if anybody on this Zoom feed, or anybody else for that matter who's watching on other media, if you want to get in on this, I think there's a function on the Facebook page as well. and right here on the Zoom feed. Use the Q&A function and put some questions there. We still have 2 more presentations tonight, and we can get those questions to our presenters. Okay, with that, Cheryl, I'm going to remind you, you will get the first chance to speak after this next presentation. This is our penultimate presentation for the evening. This is team 6943. It's called Sudbury Center, Growing the Forest City. This presentation is from the United States, and our presenter is Eric Pierce. Eric, it's all yours.
Thank you. Let's see.
Share screen button.
Can you see that?
No.
Not yet.
Did you hit share screen, Eric?
I did.
Okay, so when you hit the green button on the share screen, you're sharing your
Apologies, there we go.
Okay, good.
Bingo.
Okay, sorry about that. Well, thank you, everybody. It is a great honor and pleasure to be joining you today from a very snowy Denver, Colorado. And tremendous thanks to the school and the community of Sudbury for organizing this competition and joining us this evening. My name is Eric Pierce, and this is Growing the Forest City. The Forest City, first and foremost, celebrates and amplifies the forest context of the region and the celebration of the seasons, and embraces the beauty and mystery of the forest at large. The Forest City also engages with the working mind and the reclamation programs that have already been well established.
Eric, I want to stop you there. We're not seeing your slides. We see a black screen. If you want to just stop share and perhaps share again.
And Eric, fret not. We're not going to take this out of your time, obviously.
Okay.
We'll make sure we get the technical aspects figured out here so that you can present this the way you properly wanted to.
Interesting.
There we go. Thank you.
Okay. So it's to celebrate, to go back to celebrate and amplify the forest context of the region at large, and the beauty of the forest and the changing of the seasons, as well as the kind of mystery that comes with the forest, and bringing that into the heart of the city. The Forest City engages the working mind and the reclamation programs that have been in place, and uses that and allows the mind to actually play an active role in the future of the city. The Forest City also preserves community life, the vibrancy of the city that you have now in the town, and it works with some of the momentum for the new projects you have. But it's also important to understand that as it grows, you need to provide for equitable growth, and that comes from creating places for the community to gather in open space. It respects its heritage and its historical buildings and diversity. So the first step, how do we do this and where do we begin? Well, the answer is we begin now. And we begin with the mind, and the relationship of the mind to the downtown will make this a very visible process. Our first step in really starting to grow the city is this idea of generating what we call the Mind Lab, which MIND stands for Materials Innovation and Exploration. And this is envisioned as a partnership with the McEwen School of Architecture, Vail Mining, the city and community, where you're actually growing the future of the city in a way that's very visible. And the process is 2 parts. its energy creation and its materials creation. So you could see that Vale Mine, through this reforestation and its aggregate waste, can actually start providing some of the building blocks for the city in mass timber construction material, and as well as brick aggregate that might come from aggregate waste. And these will be used in future buildings as the city grows. The second part of this is waste, and how that byproduct of mass timber production, in addition to waste from the city, can start to power the grid of the city and actually provide a sustainable source of power for future generations. The second part of that phase is what we call early projects. So this talks more to mobility and visibility. We propose a series of cycle tracks and bike and pedestrian trails that occupy existing rail lines, underutilized open spaces, road right-of-ways to actually get people to the downtown and vice versa. And you could see that these, with embedded into the forest are these wonderful cycle routes where you can stop and pause and have a moment and celebrate the seasons. Lighting and safety at night. This could be something that really engages people to join you and come to the city, not in their car, but maybe by skating or cross-country skiing, and celebrate the winter season. And streets within the downtown itself are very important. We're calling these the forested streets. And this looks at giving the streets back to pedestrians and nature. And how you do that is you take the car parking away and actually put it in the lanes, giving you extra room to provide for smaller travel lanes and more pedestrian space and more natural areas for shade, gathering, and filtering stormwater. And last, and it's a small detail, but it's critical to the visibility of watching the city grow, is actually get the train back into the downtown where it stops. And this is the White River and the Western Canadian line, and actually allowing people that are traveling through to see the evolution of the city as it evolves over time and actually stop and activate the downtown. So getting on to districts, this would be kind of a phase 2 and talking about the Central District. And this is essentially everything from Elm Street to Brady Street. The downtown now currently, as you guys know, consists of surface parking lots, kind of scattered buildings, and some of these taller, kind of coming up on the end of their life, 7-story office and commercial buildings. So what we propose is this community-driven development pattern where you're actually looking at small lots, and the small lot provides for you diversity, flexibility, and a high degree of attainability. Whereas in one, where you picture one development could actually have 6 different it could be 6 different developments. And what you kind of see at this bottom is this kaleidoscope of these diverse building types, where you can imagine that you have many different uses as the community requires occupying this these smaller blocks. And here you can kind of see what that would look like in the downtown, with the downtown as it is today, with this infill of these variable archetypes and building sizes and uses intermixed amongst the preserved buildings and the retained buildings that have cultural and historical value. Massing is critical to the success of the public spaces downtown. So looking at a stepped massing strategy that actually allows sunlight to hit the street. Growing this downtown area north is what we call Nest, or is essentially everything north of Elm Street. And that is essentially where the former could be future former Rainbow Center, is located, where you could see that this grain of these smaller building types can extend across Elm Street, but then also allow for some larger building uses to allow more high density housing or campus or more commercial use. So you get a high degree of flexibility as to what kind of uses you're proposing in the core. The creek is critical to this zone. Free the creek, and essentially from Cedar Street to Brady Street, we propose to daylight the creek. And you could see revamped Memorial Park could be central to the life of the creek, where you're allowed to engage the water and celebrate this amplified creek nature in the heart of the city. And it's a place for gathering, and it's a place for natural experiences as well. And this projects a future Tom Davies Square centered around the creek that has more of a day-to-day life as with civic uses, but also places to come and gather. The next phase is what we call increase the footprint, and this deals with the rail yards. The southern rail yard currently creates a significant barrier between the lake and the downtown. So offering that up to development really closes that hole in the city and makes an opportunity for us to look at other ways to get to the public waterfront. And you can see here that working with the momentum of the convention center and the art museum and the historic depot as it is, you can really create a wonderful residential district around these kind of anchor projects, and a residential district that is affordable housing and senior housing of various densities and masses and heights. And here you can see that transition looking from south to north, how from the neighborhood you begin to increase density and step up as you get to the city center. Another critical thing to note about this is the bike and the pedestrian connections to the lake and the railroad crossings, which is key to getting people to that wonderful park. The last part of the railroad that we would like to phase out is what we're calling Sudbury Station, and this is in the west rail yards, which is west of Elgin Street. And you can see that this becomes an active, vibrant destination, not only for train and the Via Rail as it moves through, but we also propose a new bus transit center, a hotel associated with the train station. And of course, this would be where the arena would be relocated to. Key to note in this is you're really starting to see this big, massive green. So what is this? Well, this is what we are calling the Bluff Central Park. Why a bluff? Currently there is a ring of bluffs surrounding the downtown today. And there's also these manufactured bluffs that are created by the mine tailings. So what if you could utilize the manufactured bluffs to create a new bluff? And it's also pragmatic. We still acknowledge that there might be some train use that needs to occur. So while there is currently a hole in the city right now by the rail yards, we can begin to cap that and start to plant the seeds for actually building a park over the railway. And then over time, it becomes a community gathering space. And you can see here that where the street in the city meets the park, we've carved out these rooms and places to gather for nature play or for sports, amphitheaters, skate, really anything that the community would desire through their input. On the other side of the park, we're looking at an expanded wetland area that takes the Junction Creek corridor and pulls it over on the other side of the road and creates habitat and additional places for water quality for the entire city. And then you can see where the park spills over the railway and creates an overlook lawn and civic steps and creates a gateway to visitors traveling through on the rail, and provides a physical and visual connection to the park itself. And you could see the Sudbury station there as kind of the hub of this activity, with a gateway plaza anchoring this station area. And then there's this view from looking from the park into this plaza, which where you could see Sudbury Arena, Sudbury Station, the hotel, and some level of winter activity. Picture this on a night that the Wolves are playing, that this becomes a destination where you bring your family and you really want to linger a bit and hang out and enjoy a coffee or a drink while you stop at the station on your way to the arena for a game. And with that, that concludes the presentation. Thank you very much. I apologize for the technical glitch there, but I think this concludes that and open it up to the conversation.
Terrific, Eric. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sudbury Center, Growing the Forest City. Eric Pierce from Denver, Colorado. Cheryl, I think I promised you the first kick at this. Go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. That was a great presentation, and it's a lot to take in. I think, obviously the forest city is just such a beautiful image to call it the forest city. But some of the things that, I've been concerned about, which is, the train is important in getting to the north. So how do we deal with the train? And I like the idea of capping the train, moving parkland over the train. I think, I think that's part of the way to, soften that landscape, make it more approachable for people, make it a corridor for people when you cap it. And then obviously the train station and the hotel with the arena there as quite an entertainment center. And hopefully there'd be a high-speed train going back and forth to Toronto.
Yeah.
But the other thing that stuck out to me was the Mine Lab. Really looking at valet and looking at what are those materials out there. Could they, be repurposed to creating bricks or paving stones, and also looking at. I love the concept of freeing the creek. I think that's a beautiful visual and a beautiful sound in the city, and it's a lovely space for people to relax. And again, it's part of nature as a healing force in a city that has a lot of concrete. So I really like that all of these aspects, and I'm kind of happy to see the train still as part of the equation. So I think that's an interesting conversation for the people of Sudbury. Should the train be downtown or out of town? But thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank
Wendy,
you.
you're up next.
Okay, thank you. Boy, Cheryl and I are so much on the same page. I loved the land bridge over the railway. I found that to be actually a really practical approach, because let's face it, in order to get the railway yard out of the downtown, it's going to be a massive effort. It's going to take a long time and a whole lot of money too. So perhaps that land bridge idea with a train going through tunnels, maybe that's just a creative way of getting around that big time and money delay. So I really loved that. I liked the idea that you introduced some energy initiatives. I would still like to see more energy initiatives. I'd love to hear more about that. Of course, we are limited by time right now. And I'm just trying to look at my notes. I like that you introduced some real economic ideas, ways to stimulate the economy, like really new jobs, new I don't know if I want to say new businesses, but new ventures that really would add some different things to the local economy. I just thought it was really creative, Eric, and way to overcome the technical difficulties. You were not defeated by technology. And I wanted to chant, free the creek, free the creek. So it was really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Shannon, I see your camera on.
Thank you. I also really liked the engagement of economies through ecologies, and that you were even discussing or talking about strategic partnerships between, you know, the city and ballet and the mining extraction companies. This notion of a kind of circular economy, along with the kind of recovery of the landscape at the regional scale. I loved your proposal for the city. I think it was a very intuitive, which is interesting because I don't think you've been to Sudbury or you're in the US, but a very—
No, I can't wait to though.
It's very tactical, and it's also a really nice scale. And it made me think of, I mean, some of the things we talked about as jurors. A number of the schemes kind of continued this modernist paradigm of single-use zoning. And I think one of the things the city really is challenged by is this kind of 9-to-5 use, because it's predominantly like office and commercial, which is even more exacerbated by COVID, right? So I think the idea of this kind of 24/7, you know, with the mixed use was really, really good. And even the, you know, the mass timber housing typologies still at a nice scale. And of course, with the kind of engagement of like, you know, public park spaces, civic, your addressing of like the civic, you know, realm and the civic programs, the daylighting of the river. And another thing I was really struck by that not a lot of teams maybe got, but was the topography. And so we're in a kind of outcropping urbanism, or like a urban cottage, if you will. So a lot of our settlement right outside the city is on bedrocks, right? The kind of ticky-tacky houses on the bedrocks. So I really liked your kind of, even with the covering of the train tracks and even with the bluffs, you really got the kind of the notion of that. And so like really, really good infrastructures, really good scale. And overall, I'd like to really commend you for a very well executed, quite compelling and beautiful project. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shannon. Dennis, you want the last word on this? Unmute, Dennis.
Yeah, I share their words. I think it's a compelling proposal. And what I would think your proposal has the potential to do, just as you're dealing with adaptive reuse, you know, and again, you know, calling on Jane Jacobs to put new ideas into old buildings, I think your proposal has the ability to put the mining industry and the mining sector and the metal resource sector into a new world of relationship with the wood world that we're creating. We're moving ahead with this wood dimension, but we have this old building of resources and metal that's been the foundation of this community that I think can be, you know, pulled, you know, traction is needed here to help pull them into a richer relationship intertwined with wood. And I think that's a real dimension of the city that is currently, you know, it's included in what you're saying, but I think you have the potential to bring it. Some of the others speak to that economic link to bring us into the future. So very well done. I like that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Let's remind everybody watching this, Sudbury2050.ca, that's the website if you want to vote for the People's Choice Award. Eric Pierce from Denver, Colorado, he is team 6943, cette équipe 6943, Sudbury Center, growing the forest city. Eric, thanks so much for participating. It's great to have you on.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful. All right, friends, we have made it to the 8th and final presentation of the evening. This is team 8341, Mashkikike, a story of healing pour nous et pour la terre, a story of healing for us and for the earth. And we hand it over to team 8341, Mashkikike. All yours.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Really appreciate being being allowed to present our project here. So hope you enjoy it. We have a video here for you.
Buried below the downtown of Sudbury flow two ancient waterways, Junction Creek and Nolan Creek, beginning with the source in Swakamuck, where the rivers, roads merge, is water. Nibih, bih, water is the source of Bamadswin, life. Mishkikike, making medicine. Water is medicine. And having access to it is healing. Odenung, at the heart of community. Sudbury's downtown is Ode, the heart, where Shkode, the fire burns with our shared history, and Bindigik welcomes all to come in. Bindigik is so much more. It is about reciprocity, mutual benefit, sharing, healing.
What is the downtown and community we want to live in? Answers from over 1,000 community members created the seed vision and 5 themes for this project. From this starting point, our diverse local team, rooted in the community, grew the guiding vision. The design team developed the final imagery and design details with feedback from the team and community. This design plants the seed for an inclusive and community-based plan for the urban core. Ongoing community engagement is integral to our vision of downtown. Community engagement is not only about shaping the vision, but an essential part of everyday life in a thriving downtown.
Sudbury is decolonized. Sudbury is located within Atikameksheng Anishinaabe territory. The Atikameksheng people will lead the changes needed to support healing of ourselves and the earth. Sudbury is part of a healthy ecosystem and watershed. Low-impact development, including green infrastructure, will support enhanced biodiversity and improved water quality, connecting people with nature. Sudbury is net zero and climate energy ready. Sustainable buildings, public transit and active transportation, waste management, recycling and renewable energy systems will enable the downtown to function as a waste-free circular economy. Sudbury is caring, safe, friendly and caring for all. Downtown is revitalized but not gentrified, with affordable housing, sustainable food and accessible washrooms. Sudbury is vibrant, inclusive and inspiring sport, recreation, entertainment and public art, which reflects the unique history, communities and diverse stories of this territory.
Rewilding rail yards. By removing all downtown train traffic, the 500-acre rail yards are allowed to rewild and heal naturally. This allows for the reconnection of surrounding neighborhoods to the downtown core. As the land heals, some affordable and sustainable housing can be integrated into this new green space.
On complete streets that support walking, cycling, public transit, and an electric vehicle car share, a 2.3-kilometer free public electric bus loop is established. These green streets feature permeable road brickwork and treed central meridians. All new housing and key services are located along this mobility corridor.
Behold the Junction. The new 20,000 square foot Sudbury Art Gallery is a national cultural destination for the North. It houses 3 stories of flexible exhibition spaces for traditional, contemporary, and multimedia arts. Clad in copper, the structural form is akin to the asteroid that created the Sudbury Basin crater. The new 60,000 square foot state-of-the-art library creates an inclusive hub for all. It is equipped with makers labs, classrooms, city archives, the Folk Art Society, a bistro, cafe, and more. The library is designed to be constructed with a mass timber structure, high-efficiency glazing, and a green roof. Between the Sudbury Art Gallery and the library, a large, green, social space acts as a pedestrian corridor that connects to the Shaughnessy Block, home to the new Sudbury Theatre Center, Performing Arts Center, and hotel. The arena is renovated into a model events center in close proximity to much-needed housing and parking complex.
Welcome to Junction Greens.
Memorial Park and Tom Davie Square are completely transformed through the daylighting of Junction Creek. The creek's riparian zone is rewilded with native flora and fauna. Its long sloping shoreline creates an exciting space for community gatherings and events. Further phased daylighting is planned over time.
The Indigenous Ceremonial Center is located in the heart of downtown within the Junction Greens. It is a 5,000 square foot wood grid shell structure designated as a space for teachings, ceremonies, and gatherings while bridging an immediate connection from earth to sky. At the center, a sacred fire is found, and a medicine garden adjacent to Junction Creek supports a reciprocal relationship with nature. The wood is locally sourced eastern white cedar, and it is guided, harvested, and constructed by members, elders, and knowledge keepers of Nenswakamok and Atikameksheng Anishinaabe communities. The center is a symbol of community strength and resilience.
The new 51,000 square foot City Hall complex built from mass timber features a green roof pedestrian bridge that links the north and south of the downtown core. It integrates a shared governance space developed inclusively and led by local Indigenous values. All city programs are easily accessible to the public as the building becomes part of our daily lives. It houses a circular council chamber that overlooks the nearly daylighted Junction Creek.
Market Hub is a 13,000 square foot local business incubator, green energy generator, and multi-purpose community space. It houses Sudbury's year-round local food market, which supports local food security and a zero-waste circular economy. Just next to Market Hub, 2 net zero buildings that integrate rooftop urban agriculture and affordable, comfortable housing are found. The Elgin Street revitalization encompasses 2 major projects, a 40,000 square foot commercial and light industrial space that provides affordable spaces for new local businesses, and 32,000 square feet of mixed-use commercial and residential space in the form of mass timber, brick, and steel-clad row houses.
Community gardens are stepping stones of green oases throughout downtown, creating local food security and independence for the local community. These community gardens can be initiated at any time between 2020 to 2050.
NOSAD is a magnet of art and design. The 90,000 square foot Northern Ontario School of Art and Design has reinvigorated the Elgin Cultural Belt. It offers programs in a northern context that bridge sustainability, wellness, cultural diversity, and Indigenous cultures. NOSAD offers a world-class arts and design education for young northerners.
Nolan Greens is a 6-acre urban rewilded zone, which features the daylighted Nolan Creek. Its long sloping riparian zone creates a perfect habitat for native flora and fauna.
The Nolan Public Recreation and Community Center is a 100,000 square foot mass timber region-wide destination health and wellness facility. It provides accessible community programs that emphasize inclusion and well-being. It features indoor and outdoor pools, gymnasiums, tracks, fitness center, sporting courts, a public sauna and wellness zone, community space for organizations, and much more. It's considered the most sustainable building of its kind in Canada, with many features that harness passive strategies, including naturally purified swimming pools that are completely chemical-free. Adjacent is the Nolan Community Wellness Center. It offers a broad range of free health and wellness services, including a safe consumption program. Services are offered in English, French, and Anishinaabe-Mowin. A series of mixed-use, subsidized, and affordable housing buildings are interspersed along the downtown mobility corridor. First, and in some instances second floors, are dedicated to parking and/or commercial spaces. These multi-story buildings are constructed using mass timber structures, high-efficiency glazing, and non-toxic materials in order to support the health of their inhabitants and the ecosystems in which they live.
Guiding principles. It all begins in the core of the downtown, Odenang, the heart of the community. Beka Dze, Bekaya. Settle down, calm. Before we begin again moving forward, we need to stop, to be quiet, stay still, and what we do, calm down. Bezindan, bezindage, to listen. Only if we are calm and quiet as a community can we really listen to the source, the land, the water, the life, past, present, and future. Non dan, non dwa, to hear it, the act of hearing. Then we can truly hear what the earth and the water are telling us, what the community is asking of us. Ombe, Bijan, come on, let's go. Only after are we quiet, listen, and then hear, can we begin the steps forward together, healing together, learning together in our shared history and our shared partnership for the future.
Terrific. Thank you, Team 8341. Mashkikike, a story of healing pour nous et pour la terre. And I want to put on the record here, I know their names came up as they were voicing over parts of that video, but let's put their names on the record here. Emilio, help me. How do you pronounce your last name?
Portal.
Portal. Emilio Portal, Matthew Hunter, Jaden Daou, Elise Portal, William Morin, or Morin, however you say it, Miranda Virtanen, Naomi Grant, Cora Ray Silk, Camille Tremblay-Boileau, Simon Blakely with that wonderful British accent, Rebecca Elphick, and Megan Tran. All the people who were involved in this Canadian team, 8341 Mashkikaka, a story of healing pour nous et pour la terre. Okay, we have time now for our reactions from our Super 7. Katie, you want to start us off?
Thank you. I want to live there. My goodness. I liked the presentation. I liked the pitch and the proposal, but this really brought it home for me. The visuals, the language, the amount of people involved in this project, the timelines. I definitely want to live there. I think what stood out to me, two things really that I would love to highlight for everyone is your thoughtfulness of adaptive. So for me, a theme that came out is this can adapt, this can grow, this can scale. It's an adaptive approach from a climate perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a growth, socioeconomic, really rung through to me. So in your phased approach, I see it, but you can adapt past 2050, this philosophy and this proposal. So congratulations on that and that bridge. I don't know anyone who wouldn't want to look at that and live near that bridge in any point in their life. So congratulations.
Thanks, Katie. David Fortin.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Miigwech. I know a few of you anyways on this team. I didn't when I reviewed the proposal, but you may know that I spend quite a lot of my time thinking about reconciliation in terms of architecture and design. And I think this is so important what you're proposing here, because at an urban scale, there's a risk of us just continuing urbanism as usual. It's kind of like business as usual. And if we really want to make a serious attempt in our country to heal, as you framed it in this proposal, it needs exactly the kind of collective thinking and respect of the language and the land that you proposed. So I really, I'm completely sold, because what I love about it is the inclusivity of it. I feel it's really of the place. And I think that your kind of grassroots approach to it, it really stands out as something unique to this competition. And I really commend everything you've done. So thank you, Miigwech, for this proposal.
Thanks, David. Wendy, I see your camera on.
Sure, I'd love to comment. What an incredible ensemble cast delivered that video. Really well done. A lot of community members whose names I recognize, a couple that I know. I have to say, I really like the decade timeline. I like that timeline. I loved daylighting the creek. The more I see that idea and hear that phrase, the more I like it. The nod to net zero, people first, putting people first, rewilding the railway, that you've engaged over 1,000 community members already. Holy cow. And my biggest surprise, and perhaps also biggest delight, is that you spoke to safe injection opioid crisis issues right away. So really thoughtful and really understanding what's going on in the downtown right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Shannon.
Thank you so much. I mean, that was extremely powerful, and I would say even paradigm changing. I mean, globally, thinking about an Indigenous worldview for, as David says, how do we now shape our cities, or how should we be shaping our cities? I also agree it was quite beautiful, inspiring, the amount of community engagement, over 1,000 people. on this. I think also, even you're tackling the kind of, governance, like the tricultural governance. And even I love the civic architecture for that. I mean, I think a number of schemes I've really appreciated have daylit the Junction Creek and the Nolan Creeks, but I think you're one of the teams who've actually architecturally engaged really, really, quite boldly with that. And I agree. I think, I do live there. I do want to live there. I do live there, but I think I can imagine that kind of civic architecture is also really inspiring for the inhabitants. I think we've talked about the importance of food security, especially being a northern, more remote city, and also with our challenges, as St. Wendy has said, of homelessness, injection usage and opioid crisis. And I guess just one of the questions I had, because you talk about, I think, free transportation, free buses, and as an advisor to the city of Ottawa and implementing a lot of public transportation, I guess one of the questions might be, how do you, because I think your public transportation is free, how would you imagine funding that?
That's an interesting question. Maybe I'm just thinking maybe Naomi wants to jump in on that.
Sure. So I think really it's a choice. So we don't go out when they come out to pick up our garbage or recycling. We don't go out and give the truck driver, a fare. When we go to the library, we don't pay for entrance. We do pay when we get on the bus, but that's a choice to be made. So I think it's something we can think about. People need to get around, to get to work, to go to school, to reach opportunities, to reach medical care, to see family. If we see it as an essential service, should we be paying it through a fee, or should we be paying it through taxes that are more tied to our means?
Thank you. I guess just finally, I also appreciated with this kind of deep landscape or deep time, as Robert McFarland would coin, in terms of talking about inspirations for the architecture from even the geological rupture, which created the Sudbury Basin way back with the Cosmo kind of shattering. So very appreciative and very beautiful, inspiring scheme. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Shannon. I think we got time for Dennis and Cheryl, and then we'll wrap it up.
First of all, thank all of you. I was moved by your scheme, and I was really moved by your use of the word healing as a fundamental platform for your thinking, because healing conjures up the sense of time. It brings time because you're healing from something and moving to something. And healing always involves scar tissue, whether it's physical, built environment, mental, spiritual, existential. And your approach covers all of those things, which is so important. It doesn't just make one exclusive to another. And it reminds me of how Sudbury finally understood that in order to get fish back in its lakes, it had to heal the lake first before it started throwing fish into these lakes. I mean, so what you're doing here is bringing us back, in time to bring us forward. And it, to me, is the power of what you have here. And I like your imagery, and the way you dealt with Junction Creek, to me too, is just really phenomenal. I like that. When you start to use words like riparian zones, it, to me, is so powerful a word. That connective tissue of 3 feet into the lake up to, that's where the life emerges. And so thank you very much. Really enjoyed your presentation.
Cheryl, last word to you. Cheryl, you got on mute.
I was truly impressed that you had 1,000 people already engaged in this. And the other thing, the other big surprise is that you had 24 proposed building sites identified. So a tremendous amount of work. As I watched the video, I felt like I was going on a very lovely journey into a place that I wanted to go and hang out. It definitely drew me in the way that you say, to make medicine, to make a place where people feel relaxed, where they feel comfortable, where they don't feel stressed. I felt very de-stressed. And I truly love the asteroid. I think what a great name for the Sudbury Art Gallery. The asteroid is fabulous. You know, the big controversy perhaps is the elimination of the railway lines. So how does that play out? You know, is there a way to still get them underground? I don't know, but that's something to consider. It's a lot of land, 500 acres. And I do believe that if we want to eliminate cars, and cars are a big part of the North, so the transportation system has to be plentiful, and perhaps it has to be free. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. A reminder, if you're voting for the People's Choice Award, we just heard from team 8341. C'était équipe, here's my French, 83-41. Mashkikike, a story of healing pour nous et pour la terre, from Canada. Thank you, Emilia, Elise, and your team. Well, that brings us to the end, 3+ hours later. Amazing. I want to remind everybody there's a $50,000 prize at stake for tonight, a $10,000 prize at stake for last night. You can vote on the People's Choice Award until midnight tonight Eastern Time at Sudbury2050.ca. That's Sudbury2050.ca. The full jury is going to meet one more time, both for the open and student categories, on November 30th. So just a few days from now. And the winners are going to be announced in the first week of December. I truly want to thank, I guess, what were we calling them? Our Super 7 or our Silver 7 tonight, the jury and the invited community members for joining us. We can't thank you enough for devoting so much time and giving of your feedback to all of these presentations. And can I just say, I know on behalf of everybody, I want to say just how absolutely fundamentally deeply impressed we were with the amount of work, effort, and vision that went into all 13 presentations last night and tonight. Bravo, everybody. Félicitations, auguri. Just a great job. Everybody turn their cameras on for 1 minute and just let's see the applause. I think that'd be great. Cameras on, applause to everybody who contributed so much to making this a great success. Terrence Galvin, starting with you. What a great job, my friend. You pulled it all together. That's it for us tonight, everybody. Thanks for participating and good night.
Thank you.